All right, a Friday edition of The Zone right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you. Jack Johnson, the Drake. We had up until 2 o'clock. Sterling eventually. I don't know what he's doing. Who knows what he's doing? You know, he put in so much work over the last couple of days. Why work a full 4-hour show? No, we kid. He will be here with us in a little bit, but we have plenty of things to talk about and discuss and break down with the first round of the NFL draft last night and the Kansas City Chiefs selecting Josh Simmons, one of the most discussed, debated, and I think wide variance of where people thought he may go, or people, thinking whether or not the Chiefs should select Josh Simmons. We will get into all of that over the next 4 hours. We've got a lot of stuff to talk about and get into. Matt Derrick will join us an hour from now. We will talk with Mick Schaefer, KSHB 41 Sports Director. They will both be here on location with us where we are at the Deck Supply, where spring is here. And it is time to build that dream deck. And at the Deck Supply, they've got Fiberon decking ready to roll with the spring sale April 24th through the 26th. So today, tomorrow, perfect time to save on Fiberon decking at the Deck Supply. You beat the tariffs, done, pay the tax. They got it. They are covering the sales tax on all in-stock Fiberon decking for these couple of days only. So you need to check that out. And also TimberTech, if you're ready to build the ultimate outdoor hangout. Deck Supply bringing the heat with the spring sale on TimberTech decking. Again, today, tomorrow, when that sale continues to go on, they will take care of the sales tax as well. So that is here at the Deck Supply, Kansas City Deck Supply, 105th and Metcalf, where we are located today. And you can come by, say hi, and check everything out as you get ready for the summer to get that deck done. I know at our residence, we will be renovating our deck this summer as well. So I'll be doing a little shopping today while we're here. 913-912-4810 is a text line. 913-912-4810, the text line to get into and talk about and give your response, your reaction, your thoughts, your opinion on the Chiefs selecting Josh Simmons at number 32. And, boy, I have been trying to tell everybody for the last year. I said all through the football season and leading into the Super Bowl, the Chiefs would be selecting at number 32. They would have the last pick of the first round. And after the Chiefs lost to the Eagles, people were like, throwing it in your face. What about these bookmarks, huh? You dummy. You said the Chiefs would be picking last in the NFL draft. Now they're going to be picking 31st. Well, how the turntables have turned. They do select number 32 as they trade back one spot with the Philadelphia Eagles. So I don't know, best of both worlds. They trade back, get an extra pick, and Todd Lebo is happy that he didn't hang out at Arrowhead all night and not have a selection to talk about. Maybe some other fans are happy that did not want them to trade back out of the first round, that they did not trade back out of the first round. It was a trade that didn't expect the Eagles to move up just one spot. We saw the Chiefs do that last year to get Kingsley. They moved up one spot. The Philadelphia Eagles move up one spot. The Chiefs pick up a fifth-round pick that they did not have that they'll be able to use on Saturday or maneuver around the board tonight. With the second and third round, they've got 3 selections coming up tonight. Their 2 selections, and then the Tennessee Titans selection for L'Jarius Sneed. So we will talk about that. Brandon Thorne will also join us coming up at noon from Trench Warfare, one of the best at breaking down offensive linemen. He's really, really good. And he's got breakdowns on all the offensive linemen in this class. And he loves Josh Simmons. It's his would have been number 1 tackle in the draft. Number 2 tackle is where he rated Josh Simmons in the draft behind Armand Membu, because there was more tape and more to go off of with Membu. At least someone run that house. Come on now. So he goes top 10, and I think, and one of the things that we've talked about is without the injury, I think the draft pick last night is with the 4th pick in the draft, the New England Patriots select Josh Simmons, Ohio State. I think that would have been how the draft would have gone without the injury to Josh Simmons. It's a world we don't know. We'll never know what that would have been, but he was pacing to be the number one tackle in this draft and a top 10 pick. Maybe even if you say, well, Will Campbell isn't going to go, or Will Campbell's still going to go at number 4 with his, Tyrannosaurus Rex arms, then number 7 to, the Jets would be Josh Simmons. Okay, well, maybe they liked Armand Mimbu better. Okay, well, then number 9 to the Saints at offensive tackle, because those are the 3 tackles that went in the top 10. This is where we get into the conversation about how difficult it is. We all acknowledge that, right? We all acknowledge how difficult it is to find a franchise left tackle. And it is so difficult that for the Chiefs to even be in a position to draft a guy that would have been top 10, they needed to have that guy have an injury with really low success rates of return to not only play, but return to that level of play. That's how difficult it is. You had to play a little roulette here, the Chiefs did. And they're putting it on red or black, I don't know, or green. Maybe green for go, red for Chiefs, black because that's what they give out to the rest of the league when they go and win every year. That's the colorful trophy cases for the AFC since Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. It's just blank. There it is. I don't know. Searching for that one. But you have to take a risk when you are in the Chiefs' position to get a left tackle. Either that is overpay in free agency, trade away a first-rounder for a guy in Orlando Brown that played right tackle that you're going to have to move to left tackle, trade away future first-rounders to move up and take a guy that would have been gone in the top 10, top 15, or have something like this happen where Brett Veach says, oddly enough, a blessing in disguise that this guy suffered the injury because he would not be there at number 32. We'll talk with Brandon Thorne about some of those things, what he likes about Josh Simmons, and what the concerns would be for an offensive lineman that suffered that injury. We talked with Evan Kraft yesterday. We'll play back a clip from that and him talking about, the difficulty for an offensive lineman and also the specific importance of surgery and how the surgery was performed and how successful that surgery was as it relates to the rest of that player's career. The recovery timeline, the returning to level of play, a lot of it dependent on the surgery. And we heard last night Brett Veach mention the surgery multiple times about how they liked and they thought it was a really good surgery that helped them feel more and more comfortable with this selection. But make no mistake, this is a risk that the Chiefs have to get right. This cannot be somebody who chronically has a knee injury the rest of his however long career. It cannot be somebody that is halfway through the season and the question is, I don't know when this guy's going to see the field. He's just not recovering. It's that strength isn't there. That explosion isn't there. That range of motion isn't there. The swiftness and how his athletic ability just popped off the screen and him being able to move and get out in space and immediately get into his drop, immediately attack a defensive end. All of those things that made him a guy that would have been a top 10 pick. Well, it is difficult to come back from one of these injuries. These are the injuries that we look at. It's not an ACL, and it's not even Achilles. I mean, you would look at that and say there's more success historically in the NFL for those injuries. And a big guy like this, the Chiefs have had a couple of offensive linemen have ruptured patella tendons. One of those being Lucas Niang, didn't come back and start for the Chiefs anymore. Another one was Martinez Rankin. Whether or not that was going to be somebody that was a great offensive lineman or not, those guys essentially then gone from what maybe the potential was. I mean, Lucas Niang was your starting right tackle for the Chiefs until the ruptured tendon that happened against the Cincinnati Bengals when he moved from right tackle to left tackle to fill in for Orlando Brown, who had got injured during warm-ups. And you lose him, and he never returned to the level that even the Chiefs thought he would be as the starting right tackle that particular year. So We know the risk that is associated with this. I am okay with the risk. We've talked about this. We have created the hypothetical, the scenario that we don't know. You cannot just press a button and say this is the answer. But the hypothetical scenario that we gave was if Josh Simmons was the answer, if Josh Simmons was the guy that would play left tackle for the Chiefs and you'd have him for the next 6, 7, 8 years, because, again, when you're talking about it's tough to find a left tackle, it means because teams don't let them walk in free agency. It's tough to draft them unless you have a bad season or you're going to trade away the future to go and get that guy. So if he is the answer, he'll be the answer for the next 6, 7, 8, 9 years for Patrick Mahomes. That's the bet that they are making. That's the gamble that they are making. And the way they view it is, obviously, the risk is worth it. Okay? It's the juice is going to be worth the squeeze. That if this guy does not end up being the top 10 level of player, maybe the knee injury does not allow him to get back to the top end player that he could have been, the potential that was there. Well, then what's 70 or 80% of that? Is that still a serviceable tackle? Is it a guy that maybe could be playing left tackle and be okay? You know, could he be Donovan Smith over the next 3, 4, 5 years, whatever that might be? I don't know. But the scenario we presented was if he was the answer starting in 2026 and you didn't get anything out of him in 2025, would it be worth it? And my answer was yes. It would absolutely be worth it because they have had this revolving door of trying to find who the tackle's going to be. They tried to pay Orlando Brown. He said, no, thank you. I want less money from the Bengals. It's not what he said, but that's what he got. I'm not going to sign this contract. I'm going to go hit free agency. And the Chiefs said, fine, we're going to move on to Juwan Taylor unless you take the contract. Now we're not going to wait around and lose Juwan Taylor and lose you as well. We're moving on to Juwan Taylor. And then Orlando Brown got less money from the Bengals. I think he probably would have been better off. I think looking back, he probably, in a candid moment, truth syrup, whatever, would serum. I don't know. Is there truth syrup? There probably is, depending on the waffles or pancakes that you like or dislike. I don't know. Is it maple? Probably. The truth serum, yes, I should have signed with the Kansas City Chiefs and stayed there. But they tried that. Donovan Smith. This is the third year in a row that the Chiefs have taken a tackle. Third round, Wanya Morris. Last year, second round, Kingsley. This year, first round. It's been a need. It's been a revolving door. It has been something that the Chiefs have tried to patch together or have a developmental guy along the way. That has not worked. This needs to work because they can't have first-round draft picks in 2 of the last 3 years that do not produce as first-round draft picks. Because FAU is not producing as a first-round draft pick. They still have a need at defensive end. They may go edge tonight at some point with one of these 3 picks. There was people were talking about them going edge last night because 2 years ago they took FAU. That has not worked yet. Okay, it's not to the level that you would hope. And obviously there's real concern about if that ever will happen. They brought back Charles Omenihu, and again, I'm perfectly fine with them re-signing Charles Omenihu at that contract, even if FAU was playing a stud defensive end, a stud edge pass rusher for this team. Bringing back Charles Omenihu on that contract is great. It's awesome. But this has to work. It is a risk. I think it's a risk worth taking because it's not a risk where you're spending the 2026 first-round draft pick to move up and take a tackle that you hope will live up to expectations. It is one first-rounder that should not have been there without the injury. Jack Johnson, you will be on the broadcast tonight as the second round will be going along, and you'll be here to break everything down as the Chiefs have the 63rd pick in the draft, the 31st pick tonight. Maybe they have a pick before that since they picked up a 5th rounder and a 4th rounder since the season ended, a 4th rounder with Joe Thuney next year that they could certainly package and move around, and a 5th rounder for this year from the Philadelphia Eagles. Jack, your thoughts on the Chiefs selecting Josh Simmons and how you feel about the newest Kansas City Chief?
Well, it's one of those things where we all have to understand the risk of what's happening here. I mean, this is a selection that you're going with, that you are banking on health. You know the talent's there. We've seen the talent before, and as you brought up, if he did have more snaps this year, maybe he is going top 5 or he's going top 10. Nick Saban was very high on him right after the Chiefs drafted him, and they were raving about this being a steal. But as much as we are raving about it being a steal and as much as we can bank on the upside, we also have to acknowledge the negative of it, which is that maybe in 2025 he doesn't make too much of an impact. I mean, the offensive line feels pretty set with what they have. You have Jalen Moore at left tackle. You have Jawan Taylor for another year. Maybe this is that, let's learn the playbook this year. Let's be prepared for sure, but our goal is to build this offensive line for the future, and you're going to be a big part of it. I understand people are going to be upset that they passed on a wide receiver, maybe didn't try to add a weapon that could help them in 2025. But when you're selecting this late in the first round, we see teams do this from time to time because it's never a guarantee that a pick 31 or pick 32 is going to be a stud in the NFL. You have a higher chance in the top 10, we all know. But when you're picking 30, 31, 32, it's basically a day 2 pick. And the Chiefs have hit on their late picks before, Xavier Worthy being one last year. But then they had Felix Anudike-Uzomah, who's more of a project piece. And this feels like a project piece, yes, but also a lot higher upside than maybe the last couple of picks they've had because he is a top 10 talent when healthy. It's just a concerning injury where this is something that may never go away, or from what Andy Reid and Brett Veach said last night, hey, he's fine. He's going to be good to go by training camp, and we would love for that to be the case. We just got to wait and see what he's going to look like in training camp.
Are you okay with the risk? I'm fine with the risk because this is a Chiefs team that we know. The only way you're drafting somebody of this talent in the first round for the Chiefs is you have a disaster of a season with injuries or whatever, and we know that if the Chiefs are going to be drafting in the top 10, we know who the injury occurred to. Okay, let's be honest as that. And no, that is not preferable for them to get a top 10 tackle in the draft. Or you make a move like the Chiefs had to make for Patrick Mahomes, and you move maybe into the teens and give up a first-rounder next year. Hey, this year's third, you give up the Titans pick in the third round, and next year's first-rounder to move from 31 to 20 to take a tackle that shouldn't have been there or something like that. Or last year making that move for Amarius Mims if he would have been there at like 20 or 21 instead of going to the Bengals where he went to. Those are the ways that you get a tackle like this. Or, of course, an injury that you are banking on your medicals being right in that he will make a full recovery. Are you on board with the risk-reward of this selection with Josh Simmons?
I am on board with it, mainly because the Chiefs have put themselves in a position to take risks like this. If you are a team that is, constantly fumbling around and getting to the playoffs or maybe getting a step further in the playoffs, you've got more pressure, more heat on you to absolutely nail a first-round pick. Like, this guy has to go out and be a stud from day one. With the Chiefs being as successful as they have been the last handful of years, it's not to say, well, we can whiff on a couple of picks and nobody's going to care. It's not that, but it puts you in a good spot of, hey, right now we do have our starting offensive lineman, and the guy we're going to take may be more of a piece for 26, 27, 28. Because what have we always talked about with the Chiefs and why this dynasty has been so good? They are able to not only prepare their upcoming team, they're also building for the future. They're also trying to, get guys that will be there 2 years down the road and be very effective. And that's how I view this pick. I mean, I love the upside of it. I understand the risk, but at a spot where you're drafting, that feels okay to me. It doesn't feel okay to me if you're drafting 15 to 20. And, we're going to take a guy that they all said could have gone top 5 if he was healthy. There's probably still a lot of great players in the 15 to 20 range where once you're getting to 31, 32, you might be looking to day 2 on who's still going to be there. And honestly, with the wide receivers that were still available when the Chiefs were picking, they're probably sitting back going, there's going to be guys available in round 2. We might be able to do something in round 2 and get somebody that was already on our draft board. So Yeah, it would have been sexy and exciting to go after a wide receiver because skill position players are the ones that really generate a lot of buzz. But we saw what happened in the Super Bowl and why this team lost. It wasn't because of drops, and I know DeAndre Hopkins had a bad drop, but it wasn't the wide receivers. Patrick Mahomes had no time, and his other Super Bowl loss, he had no time. To me, putting a lot of emphasis on the offensive line this coming year and for the future is far more important. We also have to bring up, though, this wide receiver room, when everybody's done with the suspensions and they're healthy, you got Rashee Rice, Hollywood Brown, and Xavier Worthy. Those are a really good 1, 2, 3. And yeah, maybe you can another wide receiver to the group, but for me, I'm all right letting that be in day 2 and day 3.
Yeah, I mean, when we look at how the tackles, where the tackles are drafted, the best tackles in the league, and we've talked about this, we've discussed this. If we look at, let's say, the top 10 tackles viewed at PFF or whatever grading scale you want to use, but top 10 tackles, and left tackles only specifically, in the NFL and where they are at, 7 of them are drafted in the first round. And those first-round picks are the 4th pick, the 13th pick, the 13th pick, the 20th pick, the 23rd pick in Darrisaw, the 6th pick, the 4th pick, the 9th pick, and then you have a couple of other selections that were not first rounders in the Colts left tackle Bernard Raimann, and then obviously Jordan Mailata as a 7th rounder rugby player that the Eagles turned into a stud tackle. So you've got the top 20, 23 for Darrisaw. And that's sort of the outlier if we're talking about first-round picks. Because even if we go further down the list of first-rounders as top tackles in the NFL, you're looking at the 9th pick, the 23rd, or the Darrisaw was the 23rd. But the 6th pick, the 4th pick, the 15th pick, you're still getting into those first-round selections that are top 15 or top 20 if you're going to take that. We will take a timeout. We'll come back. I do want to hear from Brett Veach, weighed in on the injury, the research they put in. There's a couple of things that were said here that at least set my mind at ease to a degree. There's still going to be that risk until we see him on the football field. But as far as what they've done with the research and they feeling like the risk-reward, the juice was worth the squeeze on this one because of their medicals and their doctors. We'll talk about that. We'll hear from Andy Reid, Brett Veach, and then we also have a couple of clips from Evan Kraft that we cut up. We talked with him yesterday about offensive linemen and those patella ruptures that we've seen in the NFL. We'll take a timeout, come back. We'll continue rolling. We are hanging out at Casey Deck Supply today because they have their spring sale going on, still going on today and tomorrow. They've got the best deals you're going to see, and they are going to take care of the sales tax for you today and tomorrow. So Fiberon looking to build that dream deck. TimberTech looking to build that ultimate outdoor hangout. They've got it here, and the Deck Supply is hooking you up with some great prices, and the sales tax is taken care of today and tomorrow. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back, continue rolling with more Zone. We'll continue hanging out with Jack Johnson, Sterling Holmes, the Drake. Matt Derrick will join us at 11. Brandon Thorne coming up at noon. 12:30, Mick Schaefer. More Zone right after this. You know, storms coming out of nowhere essentially on Wednesday night. Didn't expect it to rain, and all of a sudden we've got storms, we've got heavy winds, we've got 2 different, waves of that. And if you're looking or thinking about something going on with your roof, it is Pyramid Roofing, pyramidroofingkc.com. You get the free roof inspections, and that is a great peace of mind. I mean, that's worth its weight in anything. If you're wanting to know what might be going on with your roof, whether it's missing, damaged shingles, a sagging roof that maybe you can't see if it's not within your line of sight, if you're not hanging out in the attic from time to time, leaks that are going on that maybe have not manifested themselves to go through the attic or the ceiling, and that's just waiting to happen, that you can go and get fixed right now. If you don't know what's going on up there, again, free roof inspections. You can weatherproof your roof. You can get and stay ahead of the weather. It's both commercial and residential. Locally owned and operated is Pyramid Roofing KC. Tell them you heard about it right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. If your roof is over 15 years old, then you might be in the market to need, or at least, man, get it checked out. Have that inspection taken care of. PyramidRoofingKC.com. Tell them you heard about it right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. It's 816-966-1101. Check them out, PyramidRoofingKC.com. All right, we continue hanging out at the Deck Supply. Jason Anderson with you in the zone on a Friday. We had up until 2 o'clock the spring sale going on at the Deck Supply, 105th and Metcalf, until Sunday. So today, the 24th through the 26th, so through tomorrow as well, I should say, the spring sale, April 24th through the 26th. Perfect time to save on that Fiberon decking here at the Deck Supply, TimberTech, and you can save on it. The stuff that is in stock as well, they are going to help you out and pay the tax. The sales tax is taken care of for these 3 days only, yesterday, today, and tomorrow at the Deck Supply. It is 105th and Metcalf where we are located today. Matt Derrick will join us on site coming up at 11 o'clock. Mick Schaefer later on in the show will join us on site, and we will talk with Brandon Thorne from Trench Warfare coming up later on in the show, one of the better offensive line scouts. He and Duke Manyweather have the offensive line masterminds and the camps that they put together for the, you got the tight end U, or isn't that what they call with Travis Kelce and Kittle and those guys, and Duke Manyweather and Brandon Thorne have the offensive line masterminds that they have those big, get-togethers and things like that. So we'll talk with Brandon Thorne about what he saw in this group of offensive linemen and specifically, obviously, with Josh Simmons. You heard the voice there, Sterling Holmes, who's hanging out with us. Sterling, I weighed in on it. Jack Johnson weighed in on it. A lot of people nationally have weighed in on it. I know going into the draft, you were not in favor of the Chiefs taking – I would say, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I would say not necessarily Josh Simmons, just maybe specifically you're not necessarily in favor of them taking a tackle in the first round. The Chiefs, they took Josh Simmons. Your thoughts and takeaway from your view on this pick as the newest Chief?
Yeah, because you're not getting Will Campbell or Armand Mimbu. I mean,
well, you might be.
Well, if that was the case, I'd have a different conversation in regards to the whole tackle thought process there. I'll say this. I like Josh versus Connerly. I like Simmons over Connerly. I did. I like that better. But, yeah, I'm still in the same boat of, for me personally, it's just too risky. And maybe I'm being too risk-averse, but that injury is so concerning. Now, on the other side, I'm not trying to sit on a fence here, but I do see some lovely, some fencing around your deck right here. So maybe
you could sit right on that.
Might be able to actually sit on that.
Go straddle that right there.
I could straddle that bad boy.
Absolutely. I know you can.
Pause. Please don't mark that.
Nope,
But I guess what it comes down to for me is I'm more risk adverse. I look up and it says 45% of players don't even return to football after the injury like this. But I'm not in the medicals. I'm not a Chiefs doctor, and the Chiefs have typically been a little more maybe lenient than other teams, or maybe more lenient to dive deeper in to these previous concerns because it's worked out for them in the past. It worked out for Trey Smith. That's the first one that comes to mind. But I think didn't Rashee Rice have a foot or something with a foot injury?
2 feet actually still.
But I think someone with a foot injury, and they were like, no, it's fine, and he's been great. So I guess what it comes down to is, do you trust the Chiefs' medicals? If you trust the Chiefs' medicals, I can see you saying this is a phenomenal pick. Again, I'm more of a maybe floor guy. You know my thoughts on this. I've been more of a floor guy. I have a little bit of concerns for what this means for Jalen Moore. Is Josh Simmons going to be a right tackle in 26? I guess it's a sunk cost because you already paid him. I'm fine. I'm. This pick to me was fine.
Are you whelmed?
I'm whelmed because the defensive tackles were gone, so I can't be angry. I'm not angry because
if Kenneth Grant was on the board there and they took Josh Simmons, you would have had an aneurysm.
I would have had an aneurysm. I would not be here today. I'd be in a hospital. So, but that wasn't the case. The really only other guy on the board that I really wanted was Luther Burden III.
Yeah.
And I understand the thought process of, well, do you need Patrick another weapon, or do you need to try and solve that left tackle spot? The answer is clearly try and solve the left tackle spot. I just don't think this actually solves it because, again, I am so concerned about the injury. I hope the best for Josh Simmons. I hope I'm wrong. But, again, right now I'm sitting here going, I'm just whelmed. And maybe they trade up in the second round and they draft a wide receiver or a playmaker and all this becomes moot. But that's where I currently sit with the information given.
I think one of the ways that I view it, too, is, when we were sitting at training camp last year, heading into the season, the left tackle was a battle between Kingsley and Wanya Morris. Now we look back and see how foolish that was to have that conversation. Now your battle, if you want to call it that, is Jalen Moore and Josh Simmons, a guy that you went out and paid who you saw play left tackle there for the 49ers in relief of Trent Williams. So you've got much more on tape an NFL player than you had with Kingsley.
Or Wanye.
Yeah, absolutely. But you saw Wanye at least with your own offense,
sure,
right, as opposed to Jalen Moore with the 49ers. And Josh Simmons, and you've got Wanye and Kingsley at different positions now. I view it as they're in a much better position today than they were last year in figuring out the left tackle spot. And I hope this is the end of the revolving door for the next 7 or 8 years. I hope we're not talking about 4 years from now there's 6 other starting tackles, because the last 4 years, 6 different guys have started at left tackle for the Chiefs. And every single Super Bowl, Patrick Mahomes has had a different starting left tackle. And this year will be the same.
Yeah.
Will be a different starting left tackle this year.
Wow.
Because it obviously will not be Joe Thuney. That'll be started, or something crazy happened if Joe Thuney is starting at left tackle if the Chiefs are in the Super Bowl this year.
The Chiefs did draft at 32.
Yeah.
You told everyone, right? You said the Chiefs will draft at 32.
People are trying to dunk on me, my guarantee, lock it up. Sterling stamp from Jason that the Chiefs will be the
century
32nd pick in the draft. They are in a much better spot. You mentioned the medicals. Let's hear from Brett Veach. Let's play. This is clip number 5, Drake, with Brett Veach, and he weighs in on the injury, the research, and all that went into them having a comfort level of selecting him with their first-round pick.
Availability is a great asset. I mean, you got to be on the field to get all that talent out of you. So a ton. I mean, we have 3-4 multiple meetings throughout the course. I mean, the guys, we'll get some early indications of what our scouts are saying from the training staff there, but it's not until they get to the combine that you get the concrete medical information they need. Early on, when we got back from the combine, I mean, everyone knew of the patella tendon injury, and those injuries are obviously serious, and they're 6-7 month recovery. And I do remember early on, Rick saying, this knee looks really good. You got a really good surgery, and really like the way it looks. And I said, would it help if we brought him in a few weeks later just to get an update on that? And he said, absolutely, we did that. And he said, yeah, it looks great. And I think you guys may have saw some of the tape out there. He did do some stuff at the pro day. It was more stretching and some sets. But Rick said really for that injury, for a guy to be already at that stage, he was well ahead of where he should be. Now, it doesn't mean he's going to be out there and full tilt for OTAs. I think we'll be smart with it. But I think that when we spoke this morning, there was really strong belief on Rick's side that for training camp, he should be really good to go. So that'll be big for us and big for him. It's one of those double-edged swords where, I mean, there's still a rehabilitation process and belief in our training staff, but on the other end, had it not been for that injury, I mean he's probably not there, right? So it's probably a blessing in a weird way that injury happened for us to be in this position and getting a lot of work ahead on the football side and on the rehab side. But we've got a great coaching staff, great locker room, great training staff, so we feel good about what we can get out of him.
One of the things that came up last night, and I thought it was pretty interesting, is how often Brett Veach mentioned surgery. That Rick Burkholder was pretty confident about how good the surgery was, and that stood out to me because of our conversation with Evan Kraft yesterday. Drake, this is clip number 11, and I asked Evan Kraft because he had mentioned the surgery, if the surgery goes well and everything, and I'm like, well, how often does it not go well? But also, like, is it easy to see if a surgery went well at the combine, MRIs or X-rays and things like that? And so here's Evan Kraft, over a decade with the Chiefs as an assistant athletic trainer. We talked with him yesterday, and Evan Kraft weighing in on the importance of the surgery specifically for the recovery, return to play, and return to level of performance for that patella rupture.
A good surgery makes a ton of difference, especially in, from a rehab standpoint and a clinician doing that rehab. If you have, for instance, in a patellar tendon rupture, if that surgeon doesn't align that patella, that kneecap correctly, or if it's that patella sits a little bit higher than it used to before the repair was made, or sits a little lower than used to, then that changes that athlete's ability to generate torque through his knee or extend his knee. So that does make a difference in that process, because then, if that patella or that kneecap is sitting too high, he's not able to really produce that strength through his knee. If it's too tight, he's losing a little bit more range of motion. He's still kind of probably having trouble putting strength through that knee.
Hearing that yesterday, and then hearing Brett Veach multiple times say, well, and Rick said it was a good surgery. And it's like, if I hadn't heard Evan Kraft say that, I'd have been like, well, yeah, of course. I mean, it's going to be you would hope it's a good surgery. You repair an ACL, it's good surgery. Tommy John, it's a good surgery. But I didn't realize sort of the importance specifically of that, where to put the patella in the exact same spot that it was for your leg to get the same movement, motion, maybe potential explosion that was there before, range of motion, if it's too high or too low from where it was to how your biomechanics and everything sort of connects in your leg. And I think that was interesting, because specifically there's a reason Brett Veach was saying it was a good surgery. Well, because for this one, clearly it matters.
Well, think of Hollywood Brown. Remember his surgery or whatever it was. It didn't heal.
It was rehab.
Or rehab, but it didn't go.
And they had to have surgery.
And like, if you're think of it this way. If you're a normal person, he would never have had surgery. It would have mattered. You're not going to be getting hit by dudes in the NFL. It doesn't matter. You're going to live with it.
Your collarbone is a centimeter off healing where it should be, and so there's a risk if you have a 300-pound man fall on you, you might break it again. I think I'm good.
I'm taking that risk.
I think I'm all right.
For the patella, if it's up or down just a little bit for a normal person, does not matter. For these world-class athletes going up against other world-class athletes.
What was that? World-class athletes? That's great, man. I love that.
Sometimes they're athletes. They're offensive line. You got to have a big booty. We know this. We've learned about this. Cynthia Freeland knows all about it, so she tells us. So I guess for me, what it comes down to is that does make a massive difference. I'm going to start trusting, and we should start trusting the Chiefs medical staff a lot more. That has me buying in at least a little more to this pick versus where I was pre-pick.
Yeah, I'm with you. It has me buying in a little bit more. It doesn't have me going, oh, well, then it's all fixed. Of course, they say this is going to happen, and therefore that's what's going to happen.
Yes.
There's never been any mistake with any rehab, with anything with the Chiefs in their entire time, with anybody here.
Ever.
No, nothing with Justin Hughes. There's no issues whatsoever
Eric
with
Berry,
that.
no.
No, nothing like day-to-day or anything like that. It's all good. It does ease my concerns to a degree from that standpoint, and it also eases my concerns a little bit when later in the conversation that Brett Veach said, when he first told Rick Burkholder about Josh Simmons and what the scouting and everything and the profile on him was, and that it was a ruptured patella, and he said that Rick Burkholder was pretty leery at that point and was like, I don't know. So the fact that Rick Burkholder went in there skeptical already and then came out with actually, that eases the mind a little. It wasn't Rick Burkholder going, well, we need a left tackle, so let's find a way to make sure this guy is the one that we're going with. Instead, it was, I don't know. I'm not sure that this is something that you want to go down the road with. And then looking at it going, well, 1, good surgery. 2, he's ahead of schedule. 3, we're confident he could be ready for training camp with what we're seeing. We'll find out. There's a lot to happen from here until they get to training camp. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back, continue rolling, hanging out at the Deck Supply, 105th and Metcalf. More Zone right after this. Are you ready to win some real cash during the basketball playoffs? Well, if you are, then check out Pick 6 from DraftKings, because when it comes to basketball payouts, DraftKings Pick 6 posterizes the competition, including Prize Picks. You hit all your picks, you score higher minimum payouts on Pick 6, plus even more cash if you outscore the competition. Pick 6 is available in most states, including Missouri. Now, last night, some fun games that were in action. Maybe not those that might have been upset about Holmes scoring there with Knicks, Pistons, and everything. And then Ja Morant and all of that stuff. But there's some good games coming up tonight. Minnesota and the Lakers, that one game 3. They're heading back to Minnesota. So there's a lot of fun stuff going on. A couple of 2-0 series, but a swing game certainly in Minnesota tonight. So a lot of fun there with the Pick 6. And new players get $50 in Pick 6 credits instantly on just a $5 entry. Download the DraftKings Pick 6 app now and use code 810WHB. That's code 810WHB for new customers to play $5, get $50 in Pick 6 credits. Better payouts, bigger wins, only with Pick 6 from DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Must be 18 plus. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Void where prohibited. 1 per new customer. Bonus awarded as non-withdrawable Pick 6 credits that expire in 14 days. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
Hanging out at the Deck Supply today till 2 o'clock in the Zone on a Friday edition, post round 1, pre-round 2 and 3 of the NFL Draft. Deck Supply's got their spring sale going on today and tomorrow with Fiberon decking and the Timber Tech to build that ultimate outdoor hangout, build that dream deck. It's at the Deck Supply, 105th and Metcalf. Tonight, rounds 2 and 3. You heard the commercial there with Jack Johnson. He will be hosting the show tonight and taking you through the 3 selections as it stands right now for the Chiefs. Jack, we talked, you and I discussed what we thought about the Josh Simmons move, the draft last night, that pick. What are you wanting to see the Chiefs accomplish tonight in right now currently with these 3 selections?
Well, I would probably like to see them go after somebody on the defensive line. I was really high on Walter Nolan going into the first round, but we saw how high he was on everybody's draft boards because some of the mocks that had him late first round, those just ended up not being true with him going mid-first round. So to try to circle back to that, I would love to see a move for a defensive tackle. Not really sure you need a defensive end. I would really try to focus on the interior of that defense. Maybe if you could find a spot to get a safety or a cornerback, though, Brett Veach has been really good at finding talent in day 3 of the draft when it comes to that position. So if I had to pick 2 spots, I'd say defensive tackle. And then if you can find a skill position guy, wide receiver, running back, I think Higgins out of Iowa State might not be a bad fit for Kansas City, bigger-bodied wide receiver that you could look for, but also a couple other guys on the defensive line that I'd be looking into. So if they get those 2 spots, or at least just one of those 2 spots, I'd feel pretty satisfied about what they do in round 2 and round 3.
Yeah, I would. I'm in agreement. I would like to see them get something in the interior defensive line. Focus on the defensive line. Even if it's an edge, it's an edge. If it's an interior defensive lineman, that's fine too. But with the 3 selections tonight, can the Chiefs come away with, an interior defensive lineman, maybe a defensive tackle and an edge, and maybe with that last selection as they head off into the sunset on Friday night, maybe, DJ Giddens or a running back of some sort, or they come back on Saturday and attack that with their 4th round pick, depending on how that board falls, because what my son was asking me yesterday, he's like, who do you think they're going to take? And I'm like, dude, I honestly have no idea. I said, last year I thought they would go wide receiver, and they went wide receiver. I was like, this year, like, they could go offensive line, they could go defensive line, they could go wide receiver, they could go cornerback if somebody's like, I have no idea, because they have different needs and they don't have one pressing, like, huge hole there. I feel the same thing tonight. They could attack the defensive line at the defensive tackle or the edge. They could go cornerback. Let's say some reason Trey Amos from Ole Miss is still there, who runs like a 4.3 40. It's like, well, he shouldn't be here. Okay, well, now they attack cornerback. You're just simply finding the best players. They could go wide receiver. They could go running back. So there's a lot of ways that they can go tonight.
Omar, Norman, Lott.
UT in the house? Tennessee? I like him. He ended up in a lot of my mock drafts. Yeah. Thank you, Jack. You're the man. Matt. All right, we're at the Deck Supply today, heading up until 2 o'clock. 913-912-4810 is a text line. They've got their spring sale going on today and tomorrow, where they are going to take care of the sales tax for you. Tariffs, beat them. Sales tax, don't worry about it. They've got it for you here at the Deck Supply today and tomorrow. So if you were looking to build that dream deck, it is this weekend. That ultimate outdoor living space, it is this weekend. Maybe you might be doing some renovating, maybe changing out some boards, maybe changing out what material you're using. I know this summer/spring, the project for the Anderson household. Can you speak third person in households? Is that okay to do? Because I don't want to say Jason is going to be looking for these things today. But
Ricky Henderson needs to switch out Ricky Henderson's deck.
The Anderson household is going to be looking for renovating the deck this weekend. All right, my wife is looking for a better deck.
Jason is looking at renovating his deck, and Jason's going to go to KC Deck Supply
That's
here
right.
because Jason thinks they got good deals.
Yep, absolutely. That's 100%. So our household is like, we need renovation of the deck because we had some wood rot and all these other things. So, yes, I will be shopping here to see what we're going to be using for our renovated deck. That's going to be the project for us coming up in about a month or so, maybe less. I don't know. I have no idea, but I'm looking forward to doing that. Definitely looking forward to doing that because I want it freaking done. Tired of looking out there and seeing different colored wood that we've used just to keep the railing up right now.
Ramshackled.
Yes, and I'm like, I'm just ready to get it done, all of this new supply. So we are at the Deck Supply, 105th and Metcalf. The Chiefs have increased their supply of left tackles since they lost in the Super Bowl. They've done that with Jalen Moore from the San Francisco 49ers. And they did that with Josh Simmons from Ohio State by way of San Diego State. And he is now a Kansas City Chief. Joining us now is Matt Derrick, Chiefs Digest. 41 is the Mike podcast. Matt, what's up, brother?
Just sitting here enjoying the lovely deck supplies.
Yes.
And thinking to myself how awful my deck. I guarantee you my deck is worse than your deck. I have probably – I know in my neighborhood – I'm ranked like dead last in deck.
You guys in your neighborhood rank decks?
We don't. I do it in my head.
That makes sense.
So I'm dead last in decks. I'm dead last in garage doors.
Oh, no.
I'm definitely dead last in yard maintenance.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm just terrible at all of them.
You know what you're first in? 41 is the Mike podcast, hosting and talking Chiefs football.
I'm probably second in that, too.
Yeah, son of a gun. Son of a gun. Nick Jacob. Did he finish first last night?
He's tied for first. Tied for first.
Goodness.
I love that you have deck rankings with the boys. Just like, hey, who's got the nicest deck?
I don't know, man. John's deck is bigger, but sometimes it's not just the size of the deck.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's going to be a nice deck.
Yeah.
Mine is small.
It's how it works.
Mine is small and dilapidated. So
that's too bad, man.
Yeah.
I'm sorry about your
deck.
It's
marked. It's rough.
That's tough. It just sort of depends on how often you're going to use the deck anyway. So, if you don't use it that much, it doesn't really need to be
do you
all
lose
that
it?
great. Well, it can start to sag a little bit if you're not out there making sure that all the different parts of it are the at least to the worthiness of strength to hold up for the weight that you will be using if you're going to be out there on the deck, like
Sounds
hosting
like
parties.
If it starts to sag, you might need Heartland's Mid-Health.
No, we're at the Deck Supply. Dude.
Oh, okay.
What are you talking about?
I'm going to get back to football here mostly because I want to brag about Nick. Because,
yes.
He got 12 picks dead right.
That's crazy.
Which is crazy because think about this. I said on the podcast I wasn't going to drag guys and everything for poor performances. Just to build somebody else up. I'm going to a little bit because
you said you weren't going to do this on the air to my draft.
In this contest, a great. One of my favorites when it comes to the draft, Daniel Jeremiah. He had 7. Chris Collinsworth had 4.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of other big names. And draft experts in this contest and everything like that. Nick got 12. He had, I think, 28 players total in the first round. Of the 32 got picked, got 28 of the 32 in the first round.
That's pretty hard in and of itself.
Both of those things are really hard. Anybody can. And last night, I don't. Could you have gotten the first even 5 or 6 picks right? That's pretty hard to do.
Yeah. Last night you might have been able to do that, though, right?
A lot of people did not have the Jacksonville making the move that they did. Now,
Well,
the
yes,
players may have gone in the order.
Yeah, the players in the order.
That counts. I mean, as long as the players go in that order.
Yeah, players in that order, maybe, and even at number 5, maybe not with Mason Graham going a little bit higher.
Mason Graham was kind of a
there was some
wild
thoughts
card
that
there.
Ashton Genty's going to be drafted number 5, and who that player may be. Matt, we've had discussions about Josh Simmons.
Yes.
On this show, you and I have discussed these things. We've talked about the risk-reward of drafting Josh Simmons, the reward being you only get opportunities to take a guy with top 10 talent. If you trade away future first-rounders, you have a god-awful season, and probably that season is because of injuries. And with the Chiefs, it would have to be an injury to a specific player who shall not be named if we talk injuries for them to be in the top 10. Or it's a injury/character, red flags of some degree that they slide down the draft board to where you're on the clock and this guy should not be there. Those are the ways that the Chiefs can get a top-end left tackle, potential top-end left tackle. Because even this guy's the number 1 tackle in the draft in 2020. Doesn't mean he's going to be great. He's just graded as the number 1 tackle in the draft. The best wide receiver in the draft. Okay, awesome. That might just be generic. We don't know. These are all prospects. These are all potential for these players. But going into last night, I'm curious as to where your comfort level was if the Chiefs took Josh Simmons coming out of the draft, listening to Brett Veach, Andy Reid, Josh Simmons. I don't know if it changed in any way, shape, or form, but how do you encapsulate sort of first round, 6 o'clock at night last night versus, this morning?
Yeah, and I think it was Albert Breer who had reported over last weekend that, one of the things about Josh Simmons, and this, Albert Breer's an Ohio State guy, so we're pretty well connected on this, said that the word from the combine was that it was sketchy, his medicals related to the knee. So now what I thought was interesting last night was Andy Reid didn't point to the combine, but he pointed to the NFL recheck. Because that's what's done typically with guys who do have injuries that are significant. The NFL will do a second evaluation for all the teams to have and everything. They'll do that sometimes when something pops up, in the combine people don't know about. But there's a handful
Deion
of
Walker
players that,
all of a sudden at the combine find out he had a stress fracture last year in his back.
There's a handful of players who will have rechecks from the medicals to the combine for all the NFL teams.
Yeah.
He pointed to that and said that the recheck was good, which I thought was fairly notable because that may have tacitly kind of acknowledged that the combine was a little sketchy. But the fact that they did their due diligence, clearly they did. Not only did they have the NFL recheck, but they had him in for the 30 visit. And 30 visits, you're not allowed any workouts. So you're not getting out on the field. Mm-hmm. You're only pretty much there for interviews and the medicals, and clearly the medicals was a huge part of his visit. So, yeah. And they not only talked about Rick Burkholder, but also their specialists. So that they had their orthopedic surgeons and everybody that is an expert in that field was looking at that knee. And that's another factor. If all of these people signed off and are feeling okay with the recovery, that's good. The catch is, and the downside is that. These injuries aren't, Andy Reid will say before, they're not all the same. Everybody's going to come back a little bit differently. But one thing that is almost universal is that no player is 100% of themselves after a patella injury. That's not the same as like an ACL. We've seen some guys, it seems like, anymore with the technology and, and the advances with this procedure, we see guys, it almost seems like they're stronger after an ACL. I'm
Tommy John.
Just get your Tommy John over with.
Exactly. Are we going to get that way with NFL players and ACLs? Just go ahead and get your ACL done in high school.
Get your ACL done.
You
can move on to the next one.
Yeah, and so that's the catch to me is just, the chances of Josh Simmons being 100% of himself before the injury is very, very slim. The question is, how much of himself can he be? Can he be 99%? Is he going to be 90? Is he going to be 80? And 90, given how good he was before, 90% might still be a above average.
I'd probably settle.
Left tackle.
You look thirsty.
I wish I do.
I'll settle out of court right now for if you give me 90% of what we saw from him on film last year, and you get 90% of that, then the Chiefs have their left tackle the next 7, 8, 9 years.
That could be good enough. It was interesting because, I mean, obviously, I've talked about it before. I've had 2 patella tendons repaired.
And you never played in the NFL
never played in the NFL after that.
Yeah.
And I'm once again, I mean, I'm a great example, I think, of probably the advances because my first one was, I don't want to say archaic, but it involved wires and everything like this and hardware in there. The second one, 10 years later, no. I mean, it was just a straight procedure. Now, one had a dislocation, one didn't. And their severity is different. I mean, we were talking before we went on the air. Teddy Bridgewater never had the words patellar tendon associated with his, although I can tell you the description of his injury, at least what people were willing to talk about, perfectly described mine. And I don't even know if you want me to describe mine because it was both of them were pretty gruesome.
No, thank you.
That's the thing, is that they're all a little bit different. I mean, not all of them are as gruesome as mine. So, I may have had and one of them I had a dislocated kneecap. So, the patellar tendon is like a rubber band.
Yeah.
You snap it, and, if you're unlucky, you snap it, and that your kneecap just goes floating. Imagine that's what happened to Teddy Bridgewater. It doesn't, and I've seen patella tendons injuries in NFL games, and you look at the player and you look at the injury, and like based on my experience, I'd say, oh, that's not a patella injury. It's just an ACL, because they are all, I mean, what they look like are all a little bit different. So if his wasn't as severe and it didn't have a floating kneecap or anything of that nature, and there have been speculation, rumors that it wasn't the most severe of injuries, those are all positives. And the Chiefs talked about the positives last night, that it looked like he had a good surgeon and good outcome. Everything was where it needs to be. And I heard, Evan Kraft yesterday on your show talking about that too, and that, hey, if the MRI show that everything is in the right place and that the surgeon was good, you're going to feel good about the outcome. But again, it comes back to nobody's 100% after a patellar tendon. It's just, are you 99, 90, 80?
I mean, Brett Veach even said that, when we get him on the field, we still got to get him on the field and stuff like that, Sterling.
I looked it up. Josh Simmons did not have a floating kneecap according to AI. So AI can at least, according to AI overview, no, Josh Simmons did not have a floating kneecap.
What's A1 say?
There you go.
So take that as you will.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, no floating kneecap for Josh Simmons.
Allen Iverson said that. It was weird. AI said it. Allen Iverson said it.
But if he returns to the level that he was, he does have some floating feet, as athletic as he is and gifted he is from that standpoint. In your mind, Matt, we've asked this question. I asked the question to Jack. I weighed in. Sterling, are you good with the risk-reward of pick number 32 for Josh Simmons, knowing that it could be you got the best tackle in the draft and a guy that should have been gone in time, a guy that in a different world we would have been saying the New England Patriots with the number 4 pick in the draft select Josh Simmons, Ohio State left tackle. That's not the reality we're living in. There's also the reality of, well, it's just unfortunate. This guy has degenerative knee, and he's got arthritis, and it's chronic now, and he's just in and out of the lineup, and now he's a rotational tackle, and boy, just if he would have been healthy, it's just one of those, man, if he was healthy type stories. Risk reward, are you good with it, Matt?
I'm torn on it because I mean I would still be very, very nervous about it, even with the information that was presented last night. And I've said all along. I mean, one of the things about this is that these teams know more about his injury and his status than we do. They've obviously have done a lot more look into it. They've actually seen it. They've seen the player. There are things from last night that encourage me. I mean, the fact that I would have been really nervous if, like Brett Veach, when talking about his workout at Ohio State in his pro day, he would say, "Oh, well, that was really impressive," because it was not.
No, he just ran a couple of drop sets, just drop steps and sliding right left. That's all he was really doing.
And and I was pretty critical of his bench press because he supposedly did like 32 reps.
He did 33 at his pro day.
But about 3 of them counted.
Yes, we talked about that. He had the most reps of any offensive tackle at the pro day, and he also had the most reps that would not have actually counted at the combine.
At the combine, it would have been about 3.
Yes.
So just because I mean he wasn't bringing the bar all the way down,
Yeah,
wasn't getting it all the way up. His hips were flying at the end.
Was not locking his elbows.
Wasn't locking his elbows. Those at the combine they would not have allowed.
Yeah.
The strength and conditioning coach at Ohio State allowed that. So it's just once again why sometimes you have to take those pro day numbers with a grain of salt because not only that, sometimes like the 40-yard dash, sometimes it's like maybe 38.5 yards. I mean,
39 and a quarter yard dash. This is really good. Look how much faster he is. Although there did seem to be a consensus of the arm length from the combine to the pro day was sort of universally accepted as something was going on with the arm length measurements.
Pro day measurements were closer to the bowl game measurements at the Shrine Bowl and the Senior Bowl. So,
right.
Yeah.
If those three things are the same and then the outlier is the combine for almost everybody, then you'd probably say something was going on with the measurement at the combine.
I still think there's a possibility that it was just that everybody did yoga and did their stretching exercises before the Senior Bowl and the Shrine Bowl. And then we're like, okay, we're good, and then stop before the combine.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but wingspan matters too. Like, I mean, Will Campbell, like there were only 2, I think, out of like 50 tackles in this draft that had a wingspan below 80, and Will Campbell had like a 77. Yeah. So it's not just short arms. Like Will Campbell's, like again, that's why I joked about T-Rex arms, for an offensive tackle. But he went number 4, which also sort of speaks to the class of offensive tackle this year. That I wonder where Will Campbell with the 3-inch arms and the 77-inch wingspan, that it's like, well, you need probably 81 or 82 to even start having the conversation where he would have gone in last year's draft. It certainly wouldn't be number 4, but also would he have been gone at number 4 if Josh Simmons had a fully intact patellar and played all of last year?
From the risk reward, I'm at least encouraged that the Chiefs seem to be going into it with the right mindset, which, I mean, now, neither Brett Veach nor Andy Reid last night just came out flat out and said, hey, it's going to be a redshirt year.
Yeah.
But there was at least enough acknowledgement that, hey, you know what, especially with Brett Veach, Brett was more of the, we'll see about training camp. I mean, he kind of, I think, wiped out OTAs completely, and Josh himself kind of wiped out OTAs. And he said training camp's his goal.
He said, we'll be smart about it. Like we'll let him progress as his knee, gives us that flexibility.
And if you're smart, he starts training camp on the PUP list. You let him get to
100%.
You get all the way back in the shape that you possibly can. I mean, if that's August, if that's the beginning of the season, let him do that.
Question for you, Matt. Is there a greater chance of re-injury, of re-tearing? I don't know how the surgery 100% works like for you. For him, is that the concern of, hey, OTAs, we don't want to push it because there's a chance of re-tearing it, or is it just a chance of, I don't know, I guess.
I think any time that you have to take it slow with rehab, it's probably a chance of that thing being fully recovered, but I don't want to speak for Matt, who's had 2 of them.
Yeah. I mean, I've researched this. I mean, I've researched a lot more than I have ACLs just because it's personal to me and everything. And so, I mean, and that's another one of the things. And now I haven't seen a study done recently, but a study at one point showed that, most players, like the average length of an NFL career after a patella tendon was like 2.5 years. Now that's discounting sometimes that we don't know. I mean, like I said,
if it happened when they're 32 years old, then that's different than when it happens when you're 22.
Like Gerard Mayo, his last year in the league was the patellar, tried to come back, and then it was like, you're done.
Yeah, and we know some guys like I was talking about Teddy Bridgewater. I mean, Teddy Bridgewater probably had a patella tendon. I mean, based on what he said, what a surgeon said, I mean, what the players all said. I mean, it certainly sounds like that the patella was involved. I'm told Brandon Graham, even though it was his injury back in 2010 as a rookie, was always described as an ACL. I'm told by somebody who was there at the time that he had to have the patella tendon repaired too. There's a lot of, and because it's that kind of injury, and especially 10, 15 years ago, it was the kind of injury that if you could hide it, not let people know about, you would keep it to yourself because at that time, even 10 years ago, there was a story that ESPN did. Because that was when Jimmy Graham, Victor Cruz, and Maurice Claiborne were all coming back from torn patellas at the same time. And it was like, oh, you know what? Torn patella tendons aren't a career death sentence anymore. Not anymore. Jimmy Graham, played obviously 8-9 more years, was never the same player before. I mean, he had a couple of 1,000-yard seasons before, never had another one again. Victor Cruz, was in the story, was talking about, hey, he's having a great year. It was his final year.
Yeah,
it was done, and he was one and done.
There's
Maurice
one,
Claiborne was never the same again.
There's one that came up and I'll give credit to this fantasy league that we're in. I like to play fantasy sports, Sterling.
Oh, tell me more.
Yeah, but a guy in our league, Brian Ward, we were talking about last night. We're like, hey, these people don't return from this, and he said, well, check out Tyquan Lewis. And I didn't even remember anything about the Colts defensive end, Tyquan Lewis, who was drafted in 2018, sorry. In 2021, he ruptured his right patella tendon. 2022, he ruptured his left patella tendon. He ruptured them both. And he's played the last 2 years. And he's graded out at Pro Football Focus like, he's sort of the same that he was before as a defensive end. He's not an offensive lineman. But that's a guy who ruptured both of them in back-to-back years right around Halloween, and returned to play to the guy that he was before. That is one data point of one player. Adrian Peterson returned from an ACL 5 minutes later and rushed for 2,000 yards. There are different types of bodies and different types of ways people recover. Salvador Perez doesn't acknowledge he's ever injured unless it's the eye and he can't see, and then he has to have eye surgery, right? It's the only time. Like, he comes back, early from injuries. Like, Patrick Mahomes has Gumby ligaments. All right, his ankles, the ligaments can tear a little bit, but he'll be fine. Come back the next week. It's no big deal. The kneecap dislocates, and they just slide it back into place without affecting the cartilage, okay? So all of this stuff, people respond differently. That was just one that I hadn't heard people talk about, and never, because it's not a big name, right? But it's not a big name, and he sort of went back to playing sort of that generic middle-of-the-pack defensive end type play. I would compare it to, like, if Mike Dana had done that and came back and been Mike Dana before. You'd be like, oh, nice player. It was Mike Dana, nice player. We're not talking about Myles Garrett returning from it. So that's one name that I had no idea. I hadn't done the research on.
And to Sterling's point in question about, can you re-tear it? I mean, it's similar to any other injury. I mean, as long as, the evidence is that it's 100% repaired, everything's gone back the way that it should be, then you should be fine. I mean, it should not be an issue with I mean, it can always happen, but as long as you don't rush it and you take your time. However, back when I did the research on mine, and originally, which was 20 years ago, so it's probably changed a little bit since then. There was a high connection between tearing one patella tendon and then tearing the other. So Lewis,
because your body's a typical, it's created the same on both sides of your right and left leg. I mean,
well, and sometimes like for me, I had subluxation of my patella in high school.
Oh, wow.
So what happens is that the patella tendon gets so strong that it pulls the kneecap out of place.
Wow, that's such a humble brag that Matt Derrick said he was so strong that it ruptured his own patella.
My patella tendon, I mean, the rest of me was not that strong. My patella tendon was fantastic. But that's because I was a catcher, and as I was a kid. And I can tell you now, I mean, letting, I think, kids 13 and under catch is probably child abuse, because it ruined my knees for my entire life.
Well, somebody's got to catch.
I mean, yeah.
Somebody's got to go to jail.
Can we get a robot, or just
like to have robot up?
What you want kids to just be soft these days? Come on.
Let the umpire catch.
Let him tear some ligaments like the rest of us.
Although probably, now that everybody does it off their knee and everything like that, not squatting, it's probably a whole lot easier.
You also have those back sort of those cushions.
Those cushions, that's probably so. It's probably a lot easier now.
Didn't have those cushions back in the 90s,
but
80s, 90s.
But that's the thing, is that I had a injury that was a kind of a precursor to a patella. If Josh Simmons doesn't have that, if it's just like a fluke because he got hit the wrong way, planted the wrong way, and it was a fluke injury, and there's no evidence of an issue on the other patella, that like, oh, wait a minute, this guy's got a 70% chance of rupturing the other one now. No, I mean, that mitigates the risk a little bit.
We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. I do want to talk to Matt Derrick about a couple of things, what the offensive line now looks like with Josh Simmons. Also, we'll get into his thoughts about what will happen tonight. We were at the Deck Supply 3 years ago in 2022 on Friday of that 2022 draft when they had just drafted Trent McDuffie and George Karlaftis, and Matt Derrick was hanging out with us, and we were talking about potential draft picks that night, and he said, Brian Cook from Cincinnati is a guy that you need to maybe do some research on, because he may be a Chief by the end of the night, and he was. So we'll get Matt Derrick's prediction, or at least thoughts about different positional spots that they may be attacking. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. We are hanging out at the Deck Supply. Their spring sale going on today and tomorrow, where they'll take care of sales tax for you, beat the tariffs, get ready for your brand new deck this summer, outdoor living space, all of that. It is the Deck Supply. We take a timeout. We come back. More Zone next. All right, man, if you're out there in your 40s or 50s, then you may be suffering from low testosterone and not even knowing it. Maybe you don't know that the symptoms that you may be having are related to low testosterone. Guys in their early to mid-30s start losing 2 to 3% of their testosterone production every year. It happens gradually. You don't feel the same way that you did back in your 20s or 30s. That starts to accumulate every single year. You could be having low energy levels. Maybe you're going to the gym and not seeing the gains. Maybe you don't have the motivation to go to the gym. Maybe you're not sleeping as well. Maybe you have brain fog. All of these things could be related to low testosterone. Heartland Men's Health, they can help. You can go to heartlandmenshealth.com, take the low T quiz on the website. Simple 10-question quiz, yes, no answers, takes 2 minutes, and schedule a consult with Heartland Men's Health. They'll do your lab work with you, have your results within 30 minutes. Licensed medical provider will review your results with you, discuss your options, help you make the decision together with the medical team. Cost of the appointment is only $99, and that includes a medical consult, T, and PSA test. And if you sign up for testosterone treatment the day of your appointment, visit is free. You could be back to having those higher energy levels, brain fog disappearing, sleeping better, waking up feeling more refreshed, more productive at work. All could be related to low testosterone. Heartland Men's Health, successfully treating men in the Kansas City area. 3 locations to serve you: Overland Park, Independence between Blue Springs and Lee Summit, and North Kansas City. Call them today at 844-447-6600. Tell them you heard about it right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB, 844-447-6600, or visit heartlandmenshealth.com. Matt Derrick with the power ballads.
Drake knows what he's supposed to do.
He knows the deal. And he would know all of the music with the deal, too, because he's the Drake. It's what he does. It actually sounds like if Drake were singing.
He's got a great voice.
Dude, it's so good.
Sultry.
I loved it, man. He sings to us sometimes in the break, and it's just really nice. So Dylan never sings to us.
That's
Drake
a shame.
does. Drake does from time to time. He also does, like, different plays. God, I need a lighter right now, you know? Just waving back and forth with a lighter. Nice, man. Matt Derrick is hanging out with us in the zone on this Friday edition. We're hanging out at the Deck Supply where they have their spring sale going on today and tomorrow. So, look, if you're thinking about building that dream deck, the Deck Supply's got you taken care of. Fiber-on decking, ready to roll out with the spring sale. Beat the tariffs, pay the tax, because they're going to pay the sales tax. You don't have to pay the sales tax. They got it. They'll take care of it, man. If you're building or upgrading or whatever it might be, Deck Supply has you covered. Also with TimberTech, if you're looking for that ultimate outdoor hangout, same thing. Sales tax, they've got you today and tomorrow. One more thing on the Josh Simmons, and then I want to get into the overall offensive line, Matt. Part of the, okay, does it set your mind at ease or not from last night? Part of the, hey, Brett Veach saying, I've got full faith in Rick. I'm not doing the injury stuff. I thought that's why we employ him and the other, specialists that are there. It's not just a matter of them like, well, they would like to draft this guy, so I guess it's our job to figure out how we can talk ourselves into drafting him. If they're signing off on this, their reputation's on the line too. It's their assessment of, we think he'll be good to go by training camp. We think this guy is ahead of schedule, what we're seeing versus historical reference points, because they have had offensive linemen. This specific training staff has had offensive linemen rupture patella tendons before. This ain't the first time they've looked at it. So with our history, what we know about it, what we've seen from them, what we see from this is our assessment that we're signing off. Their reputations are on the line with, maybe around the league, but certainly in that building. It matters.
Yeah, no, I mean, it certainly sounds like that they went into it with the right philosophy, because it didn't sound like from last night between Brett Veach and Andy Reid that the Chiefs went into this process saying, okay, Josh Simmons is the best left tackle.
Let's talk ourselves into
how we do it.
Let's talk ourselves
into it. Yeah, I mean, it seemed like
I loved hearing that he said Rick Burkholder was leery. When he told him about it, he was leery and went like, I don't know.
Yeah.
That made me feel a little bit better if he was like went in skeptical of like, look, Brett, this is a ruptured patella. I don't know about that.
Well, and that's why, I say that I can be completely wrong on this, because, I'm not a doctor, and so two, even if I had access to his MRIs and all of his test results and everything like this, and could see the knee, I'm not an expert enough to be able to tell you, hey, that's great. Hey, he's going to be fine. I only know the numbers. I only know what the history is and what everything suggests, and that's why I say, that the only real question is just going to be how much of himself can he go back to being. And if and let's face it, let's give the Chiefs, credit on a few things here, because they have in the past, their medical staff has been involved in decisions that worked out well for them, because, one of the impetus behind Tyreek and doing that trade at that time was, their calculations and saying, oh, hey, you know what? We think that Tyreek has got one good year, and then after that, the speed's going to start to go a little bit. The injuries are going to start piling on. And what happened? He had one fantastic year in Miami, and the Chiefs knew that. I mean, they fully expected the first year in Miami he was just going to blow up. And then they're like, second year, it's going to start going downhill. And that's exactly what happened. They walked on L'Jarius Sneed because they felt like that knee was a ticking time bomb. And look what happened. I mean, it looks like that knee was starting to catch up with him last year. So if those same people that made those evaluations and said, hey, it's fine to make the Tyreek Hill trade because he's not going to be the same guy in 3 years. He's going to start having some injuries. And the same staff that said, you know what, it's okay to walk on L'Jarius because he's not going to be the same guy here pretty soon. If those same people are saying Josh Simmons is a safe risk, give him you got to give him credit for that.
It's not a first rounder, but it was a sixth rounder. Those same people that said we're good with Trey Smith. we're good with signing off on the medicals. We think he's good to go. And then we find out like a year later, Trey Smith saying it was actually a misdiagnosis. Like, boy, I bet a lot of teams in the second and third round would have liked to know that was a misdiagnosis for Trey Smith, as opposed to, he goes all the way to the sixth round and he's like, do you have any issues with that? Yeah, never again. Literally never anything popping up, anything like that. Turns out probably misdiagnosed and cost him a lot of money. But he went out, and now he's going to make a lot of money, at least $23 million.
He's gonna bank.
100%, man. It's and good for him. What do you make of now? And then in the last segment with you, we'll talk about what you want to see tonight. But the offensive line right now, how it ended, or at least how they started the year last year versus how they're expected to start the year this year. Started the year last year with Kingsley and Wanya competing at left tackle. Tooney, Creed, Trey, Juwan. Now, Tooney gone. The left tackle is going to be Jalen Moore / Josh Simmons competing. Kingsley, Mike Caliendo competing at left guard. Creed, Trey, Juwan. How do you look at this offensive line at the beginning of training camp and what we expect it to look like versus last year going into training camp of what it was in a battle between Kingsley and Wanya to play left tackle, and they eventually had to go to Joe Tooney because it was just so bad.
Yeah, I'm not even sure if I see it quite that way, because I think it's Jalen Moore's job this year. The only way I think that Jalen Moore is losing the left tackle job is either through dreadful performance or injury. And Juwan Taylor, I mean, he's not losing his right tackle job outside of an injury. I mean, that's just the way I view that. Josh Simmons, I don't think he's in competition for a starting job. I think his job this year is to get himself 100% right. Now, he's probably going to be the swing tackle if healthy, and he might not be by the beginning of the season. I mean, he still may be working his way back. So
he may be a pup guy that's sitting out, first 4 or 6 weeks or whatever.
Well, exactly. And with college injuries, I mean, it's just a slight different designation. With college injuries, you can put them on a non-football injury list, so you don't have to put them on the PUP list, which, I mean, it does actually make a little bit of a difference, because I think with NFI versus PUP, if you get to the beginning of the season, you have to be on the PUP list for so many weeks, whereas with NFI, I think you can come off immediately, just when you're ready to come back. Because college injuries are considered non-football injuries. They weren't in an NFL atmosphere, so they're treated a little bit differently. So there's some little quirks there. But I don't think he's going to be, like I said, in competition. I don't think they want to put that stress on him. And I certainly didn't get the sense from anything last night that they really view that as a competition. And certainly with what they've said about Jalen Moore the last week or so, with Brett Veach going back to his press conference last week before the draft and Andy Reid this week, I mean, they're speaking very highly of Jalen Moore. Like, he's the guy that they trust. And so I think that's going to be the two guys.
So let's examine it from that standpoint then. Jalen Moore is your tackle. Kingsley / Caliendo. Fingers crossed it's Kingsley winning the job.
I think Norzad's going to be in that conversation.
That's what I said, too. Thank you. I've been wondering about Norzad as well. He looked really good as a center, but I think he could play guard. I liked what I saw in Week 18. But how do you assess this offensive line then right now, the feeling around it versus how they entered last year with all pros at different spots, but now Joe Tooney is somewhere else. They don't have the security blanket to slide out and play left tackle, that guy, and they've got their second rounder moving to a different position. So how do you assess the offensive line right now and maybe your comfort level with protecting Patrick Mahomes?
Yeah, I mean, that's the tricky thing. I mean, if it's week 2 and something happens to Jalen Moore, where do you go? I mean, it's entirely possible that, I mean, if right now, just with what we know and not having gone through a training camp yet or anything, I would say that you're probably starting the season with both Wanya and Josh on the roster. And Wanya is probably the swing tackle until Josh Simmons is ready.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, I don't know who will win the left guard position. I do think that Hunter Norzad's going to be in that conversation. The only thing that I could see from the Chiefs' standpoint of wanting him to be maybe off the bench is that he'd be your first backup at all 3 of those positions. Caliendo can play center, but he's not as good as Norzad at center. Kingsley can't play center. That's not going to be in the cards. So he's going to be just strictly a guard, and obviously he's not going to play right guard. But
can the offensive line of how it's currently constructed, and then we'll take a timeout, be better than what it was last year?
I mean, I think as a unit it could be. I mean, if Jalen Moore is better than anybody that they had playing left tackle last year, or is even good as Joe Tooney was at the end of the season, notwithstanding the Super Bowl, then yeah, I mean, they're going to be a better offensive line. If Jalen Moore even plays the way that Jalen Moore did in his snaps in San Francisco, they're going to be better at left tackle. They're probably not going to be as good at left guard.
Yeah.
But
are they going to be as good at left guard as they were the last 6-7 games when Joe Thuney was playing left tackle?
That's the question.
I would hope they would be better.
Yeah, I mean, if Kingsley or Norzad wins the job, well, it's because they beat Caliendo, who was playing that position. Therefore, they're in theory that it's upgraded.
Yep. We'll take a timeout. We're hanging out at the Deck Supply. We'll come back. We'll talk with Matt Derrick, get his thoughts on the 3 selections tonight the Chiefs have. The draft starts at 6 o'clock. The final couple picks of the second round, and then early third, late third. We'll get his thoughts on positional group and maybe some names to keep an eye on or an ear on. I don't know. As we'll do that coming up next. Hanging out at the Deck Supply. It's The Zone on a Friday. All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you, Sterling Holmes. Thank you to Matt Derrick. He is the man joining us to talk about the Kansas City Chiefs and the draft. We will talk with Brandon Thorne coming up about 10 minutes from now. He is from Trench Warfare, offensive line masterminds, one of the best when it comes to breaking down the draft from the offensive line perspective and scouting side of it. And so we will talk with him coming up about 10 minutes from now. Obviously, get his thoughts on Josh Simmons. Get his thoughts on some other draft picks as well. Armand Membu, what does he think about? I know that, well, I can tell you by listening to him, I know that he had Armand as his number one tackle in the draft.
Yeah.
Part of that was because there was a lot more data on him than Josh Simmons. Simmons was his number two tackle because you only had a little bit of time to project what he was going to be, but a lot more information on Armand. And so that was his number one tackle on the board. So we'll talk a little bit about what he thinks Armand can look like. Mizzou, Lee Summit, you know what I mean?
I texted all my Jets fans immediately and said,
all of them? Every of the Jets fans?
Got all my Jets friends. But you got a good one.
And I want to
take care of.
Get his thoughts on Arianti Ursary, Ruskin in the house, where he may go and what he thinks of him as a prospect and how good Ursary might be. But obviously it's to talk about Josh Simmons.
Yeah.
Because what we're talking about with him is, I mean, it's just what can he look like if he recovers. That's really all it is, because nobody has any idea except for what he looked like before he got injured. Because I don't know what he would look like if he's 80% of his injury. I don't know what he would look like if the patella never recovers to the degree that it was before. Nobody knows. There's no film on that. There's no way to study that. There's no way to look at that. All we have to go off of is the tape, the film, the scout, what people thought of him before the injury, and bank on the Chiefs, their doctors, agreeing and thinking that that injury will fully recover and he'll be that guy, and we'll look back and go, my God, that guy's at number 32. And then we'll come up with a list of best offensive tackles in the league. And you'll be like, oh, all these first-rounders, you got 14, 4, 23, 16, 32. Like, whoa, 32? What's that about? Yeah. Well, there's a little bit of difference there with why that guy was number 32 as opposed to not being in the top 10.
Again, I'm not a doctor. My dad's not a doctor. I don't really know many doctors, surprisingly. Don't.
Where did you stay last night, though? Holiday Inn?
My house.
Okay.
But Josh Connolly Jr. going to Washington with Josh Simmons on the board, that was a little alarming to me. That because I think almost everyone consensus had Simmons over Connolly. The injury was even the concern. So I don't know how to view that. Obviously, maybe Washington didn't do as much injury due diligence as the Chiefs did. Maybe their medical team was more concerned by it. Maybe they just, in general, said, we're not going to have him on our board. Or maybe they just simply had Josh Connolly Jr. over Josh Simmons. I just think that's a tidbit and something to monitor at least. At least I was in the moment.
My theory behind that is they traded for Tunsil. Connerly's their right tackle.
Sure.
And they need him to play right now. That's my thought as to why they went Connerly over Simmons is we've got a left tackle. We're trying to win a Super Bowl this year.
Sure.
We don't have one. We're protecting Jaden Daniels. We're not banking on the future of if Josh Simmons gets to that level, because if Josh Simmons plays at a high level, we think he'll play at Laramie Tunsil's level. Well, we've got Laramie now. He's our left tackle. We need somebody to play right tackle. We think Josh Connerly can slide in right now. That may be the thought process. That's one of the reasons why I would think maybe they go Connerly over Simmons, is because of how their roster is currently constructed as opposed to the Kansas City Chiefs. It's Jalen Moore, not Laramie Tunsil.
And that's a great thought process. I guess where I'm from is the Chargers just went with best tackle and said, we're going to move Alt to right tackle.
Right, yeah.
We're going to move him to that side.
But Alt was ready to play week 1.
100%. But it does sound like, doesn't it somewhat sound like Josh Simmons would be ready to play week 1 if the Chiefs needed him to? Or is that a smokescreen a little bit?
I think Brett Veach was hedging more than Andy Reid.
Andy seemed pretty
because Andy Reid was like, he's definitely going to be ready for training camp. Brett Veach was, the strong belief is that he'll be good to go for training camp. But we're also not going to push it. We're not going to do some things. We're not going to be dumb about it, and we're going to let him progress as his knee allows us to, and as he grows as a player, which gives you a wide range of. Yeah, just because you're ready for training camp doesn't mean you're going to be ready for week 1 in the NFL season. So whether it's the non-football injury list from college or the PUP or whatever we want to call it in training camp, to where you don't have to be on the roster to be kept by that team in week 1, that you can stash them and keep them progressing. I don't know of many or really any team that might have been out there and said, well, we think Josh Simmons can play week 1. Because I don't even think the Chiefs are viewing Josh Simmons as playing week 1. I would wonder if the Chiefs didn't sign Jalen Moore and they're sitting there with Kingsley and Wanya at left tackle, if they didn't spend more capital to move up and get, let's say, Josh Connerly. And they said, we need somebody to play right away. We need somebody that's going to have to be, an offensive tackle, because they weren't going to have enough to move up to number 9 to get Banks.
Sure.
So we're 3 in the top 10, and then the next one was Connerly at 29. So not going to have enough firepower to do that. We need a left tackle right now. Let's go get Connerly. He's still there. We'll do that. But and even Brett Veach, I think it was talking about it last night, like you're looking at other draft boards, you're looking at other teams, and he said, we were looking at other teams once it got like in the 20s, and we're like, these teams – not necessarily needing. I think maybe it was Minnesota. It's like, needing a tackle or not. Obviously with Christian Darrisaw coming back for Minnesota, it's like, well, needing a tackle. But and once you started getting to that, it's like teams really, they had already had their tackle. And he goes, and Washington's like, and they already had Tunsil. Yeah. But even they went tackle, even with Tunsil. But it was like, name the other ones. The Bills have a left tackle. The Lions have a left tackle. The Ravens just signed Ronnie Stanley at left tackle. Like they had their guys that they felt, comfortable with, and you weren't expecting them to go and draft Josh Simmons. So there was no need for the Chiefs to say, do we trade up? Sure. Because this team is going to take Josh Simmons and he's our guy. They didn't have to do that. In fact, they were allowed to trade back because you heard Brett Veach say, hey, just tell me offense, defense. Because that's what happened with the Chiefs and, was it Maisie Smith in 2023? Yeah. That the rumors were the Chiefs were wanting to trade up, and it was the Cowboys were like, yeah, but what side you looking at? And they said defense, and the Cowboys were like, you might be looking at our guy. We're not doing it. We're not trading back. They took FAU. The rumor was they were trading up to get him, and the Cowboys took him, whether that was reality or not. Let's talk about Josh Simmons and the selection from last night for the Kansas City Chiefs, joined now by Brandon Thorne, Trench Warfare, offensive line masterminds, one of the best when it comes to scouting, breaking down, and looking at offensive line prospects in the draft. Joining us now. Brandon, welcome to the show. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
Well, I appreciate you joining us. Let's just jump right in and talk about Josh Simmons. It's been a conversation the last couple of weeks around here as to whether or not the Chiefs should take that risk, not knowing if it would come to fruition. It did. Brandon, what do you think of Josh Simmons, the prospect, the player, and the Chiefs taking him at pick number 32 last night?
Yeah, I thought it was really good value because this is a guy who, for me, was kind of a fringe first-round grade So this is kind of exactly where you would like to get him. So I thought just from a value standpoint, it made perfect sense to me. And the only reason he wasn't rated higher for me is just because his profile and his evaluation as a whole just has some areas of concern, I would say, really stemming primarily from the patella knee injury that he suffered in the game against Oregon this past year. So, a patella knee injury tends to be a little bit trickier to come back from. It's not as clean cut as, say, like a broken bone or even like a tear of I think like an ACL, I think is usually a little bit more clean cut than this. So that I think is the primary reason why he dropped. But he took a significant step forward this past season in those 5.5 or so games that he played. He was dominant. You could see it from the moment you turn on the film and you watch him. He looks like a high-level NFL left tackle in the way he looks, the way he moves, just the movement ability, movement skills. He's also powerful and strong. Kind of checks every box you would want to see from a high-level left tackle. So, I was very high on him. His film, did a film room with him, sat down for about an hour, talked to him, really enjoyed that time. Thought he was insightful and engaging. And I think that, again, like this is the place you want to get him. And then on this offensive line where he's not necessarily going to be rushed to play, I think it's kind of the ideal landing spot. So I'd be pretty excited if I was a Chiefs fan.
Yeah, Brandon Thorne is our guest. Without the injury, and who knows what he would have looked like the rest of the way through the Big Ten season and on to the playoffs. It would have been great to see that. Although it may not have been great for the Chiefs to see that, because if he looked like he did, he ain't there. But if we're living in that world, Brandon, the injury doesn't happen, and you're watching his progression from 23 to 24. Where do you think he goes in the draft? Are we talking about a world where, with the 4th pick in the draft, the New England Patriots take Josh Simmons?
I think that was possible. Yeah, I certainly think top 10. He was on track to be probably my top tackle prospect in the draft, maybe my top overall prospect along the offensive line. So, yeah, I thought he certainly would have been a top 10 pick if he would have played the whole season, just the way things were trending. And yeah, so I don't see why not.
What do you love about his game, or like about his game? I don't want to put words in your mouth and love, but what do you like about his game that if he has the successful return to play and that injury, and he would, quite frankly, beat the odds of what we've seen so far in the history in the NFL of this injury, especially for bigger men, what does he do that stands out as to why potentially he would have been your number one offensive lineman in the draft?
Yeah, I think just starting on paper, the way he, is, and the way he looks on film in terms of his height, his weight, his build, his frame, the way he carries it, the way he moves, length, even hand size, wingspan, all those type of things are just kind of like, okay, box check. I think it was like 33-inch arms at the combine, but then to pro day it was 34 1/8, which is kind of more, prototypical. And I think we all know this year, if you're following, like I am, arm measurements at the combine, they were all very, very short this year, abnormally short. So you kind of tend to lean with the pro day measurements. And he looks longer than 33 on film too. So just in terms of, height, weight, build, frame, length, all that is kind of prototypical. But then you watch him move. He's sudden, excellent quickness, I would say, and balance throughout the rep to maintain his posture and sustain and finish blocks. Once he's engaged with guys, he doesn't really fall, off his feet or get overextended, hardly ever. Very rarely, I would say, this season. And then I think a telltale sign of a guy like being a high-level pass protector at tackle is the ability. I call it range. So essentially, your ability to expand when a rusher threatens you around the corner, and to stay engaged with him and press him up the arc past the quarterback's drop. He's very fluid in doing that. And when you're as big as he is and you can move that fluidly in pass protection, I think that's a very good sign. You need to be able to do that in the NFL in any sort of drop back situation. So he can do that. He can also anchor quickly. So I think he has the play strength to do that. And then in the run game, you see him lead around the edge like we see high-level left tackles do, kind of spearhead the run game on the front side. and then he could cut off the backside at a very high level. That's what was reminiscent to me of like a Christian Darrisaw coming out of Virginia Tech when I studied him. He was very similar to that level of prospect, in my opinion. Just the way he looks, the way he moves, a lot of the things that he was executing on film were very similar. So, yeah, I mean, it's very difficult. It was tough for me to write the negative section on his report. You really have to go back to 2023 when he wasn't this level of player. He took a big jump to get a lot of the negatives. And then also it's like, you know, the knee injury and those sorts of things are negatives. But just film this year, it's pretty tough to poke holes in his game. And that's why I liked him so much. It was just kind of undeniable how good he was this year. And I think from physical traits perspective, it's all legit. It's not, you know, just a really good college player who may not translate well to the NFL. I don't see it. I think he will translate really well, assuming he's healthy.
Interesting. Brandon Thorne is our guest, trench warfare, offensive line masterminds. The difference between 23 and 24, is there I'm trying to think of the way to ask the question. Is there a level of concern of a guy who looked the way that he did in 23 and then through, 5 games or so looked much better than 23, but we don't have a full profile of his last year there at Ohio State against more consistent higher-level competition? Is there a concern that, okay, how he looked in the first half of the season could have regressed back to 2023 if he had more playing time?
Yeah, I mean, somewhat of a concern. I think that's something that it's a factor. You bring it up when you're discussing his, you know, the big picture analysis of him as a prospect. It's just a small sample size at this level of play. Now, do I think it would have dropped off? No. I mean, the Oregon game was the best competition that he faced, and he got hurt on the 25th play of the game, I believe. So we saw 24 plays of him against Oregon's defensive line, you know, who's going to have multiple guys drafted. And it was excellent film in that game as well. It looked like he was on track to just kind of continue doing what he was doing against, you know, Michigan State and Iowa and, you know, teams like that. So I didn't foresee him dropping off. I thought it was sustainable. But it is what it is. You know, it's a small sample size still at that level regardless. So, you know, you don't know for sure, but I didn't see any indication that wasn't, you know, that he wasn't going to continue out. And like I said, I mean, if he would have stayed healthy, he probably would have been my top tackle prospect in the draft.
Visiting with Brandon Thorne, is he a guy that you mentioned all the different things that he does well? Is he a guy that would be susceptible to a specific pressure style dependency? The Chiefs have, since Eric Fisher, had different left tackles that have had different strengths and weaknesses that would be exploited. Orlando Brown, if he got his hands on you, you know, you weren't going anywhere, but you could beat him around the edge. So you go speed rushers, they're going to have to give him some help. And Joe Thuney filled in admirably, but power rush, he didn't have the lead back there to really anchor and keep that guy from pushing him back to a Patrick Mahomes. So it's like speed, look at his technique and mirroring. He can do all of those things. But, boy, if there's a bigger guy that's just going to push him, he doesn't really have that body type to that. Is Josh Simmons a guy that speed to power, speed around the edge, bull rush, verse, if it's different types of pass rushers that he would hold up against whoever it is on the other side and their style of pass rush?
Yeah, it's a good question. I just think that he is well-rounded enough of a prospect that I don't really see a specific style giving him particular trouble. It's more so just facing elite rushers, like just in general, guys who could set him up, you know, get his feet stopped because, you know, they're able to kind of bait him into doing that before they, you know, string together a secondary move, which is something that elite guys do, you know, that could get anybody in trouble. You know, I mean, Jared versus Powers, it's going to be a lot for anybody to handle. I mean, he ran over Jordan Mailata last year like he was, you know, a speed bump, and Jordan Mailata is, you know, 380 pounds, you know, right. 6'8". So, yeah, that could happen to Josh Simmons, but, I mean, you know, it's going to happen to kind of anybody here and there. So I just think generally, like, any high-level rusher is, you know, going to be able to probably get him into some compromising situations like any other high-level tackle. But I don't see, like, a specific skill, like, in terms of, like, a speed or a power guy in particular giving him trouble. I don't, because I think he's very well-rounded and, yeah, so hopefully that answers that.
Yeah, absolutely. A couple quick ones for you. Some people may like giving comps and may not. And typically when we give a comp, it's like, the best player that's out. It's like, the comp for this guy is a Hall of Famer. But if we see Josh Simmons return to the level of play he was at pre-injury, is there a guy? You mentioned Darisaw. Is that the type of player the Chiefs would be getting if he one? I guess it's return to the level of play pre-injury, and also developing as a prospect, and there's potential there. But is it a guy like Christian Darisaw that could be the Chiefs' left tackle?
Yep, that would be my comp. I mean, pretty much the moment I turned on the film and watched him, over the course of half of a game or so, that was the name that came to mind. And sometimes I don't like giving comps. I have to for Bleacher Report. I wrote 70 reports or whatever, and some of the comps I just it feels like you're kind of round, square peg, round hole in it. But some of them just click. And for me, with Josh Simmons, Christian Darisaw definitely was one of those that I felt good about. So that would be my comp. Yeah, assuming he's healthy.
Visiting with Brandon Thorne, Trench Warfare, offensive line masterminds, all the Bleacher Report, scouts that he has there as well. Is the risk worth or reward worth the risk for Josh Simmons there at number 32 to you?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. This is exactly where you would take him at the tail end of the first or early second. So, yeah, absolutely. I mean, the payoff is potentially a franchise left tackle that this team hasn't had in, who knows how long. So, yeah, I mean, absolutely. For me, this is the perfect spot to take him. And then I love the landing spot just in terms of the construction of the offensive line. Obviously, the coaching is very, very high level. Quarterback, the things around him. I mean, this is kind of a perfect marriage to me. If he was going to work out, I think this is the place it's going to happen. So, yeah.
Last one for you. I wanted to get your thoughts on a couple of local guys real quick. Armand Membu, Mizzou, Lee Summit North, my alma mater. Lee Summit North, LSN in the house. What do you think of Membu and what he can do with the Jets? And then a guy expected to go tonight is Ariante Ursary from Ruskin High School here in Kansas City. Armand Membu, what do you like about him? How good can he be? And what is Ursary? How good of a tackle can he be?
Yeah, I mean, Armand Membu was my top-ranked tackle in the class. I projected Will Campbell. I thought ideally he would be inside who could play tackle. So Will Campbell was my top overall offensive lineman. Tackle specific, Membu was number one. Just because I thought his total evaluation was a little bit cleaner than Josh Simmons, obviously not having the injury being the primary reason. But yeah, Membu's another guy. Him and Simmons were my only first round graded tackles in the draft. Simmons being tail end, Membu being more middle of the first. So, but yeah, Membu's another guy. Kind of right when you watch him on film, the way he looks, the way he carries 330 plus pounds is very impressive. Pretty rare. You don't see a lot of guys that big moving as fluidly as he does. 6'4" and change, kind of in that Jason Peters, Dwayne Brown sort of mold, maybe Ike Ekwonu, a little bit, like just to give you kind of a spectrum there of kind of the body type that he has. But guys play tackle like that. I mean, he's long, pretty long arms, long enough for sure. So, but it's just the fluidity of his movement at 330 pounds for being a guy who's, I think he's like 21 years old or so. And then all the natural power that he has when he lands his hands on guys. He could really drive, sustain, and finish in the run game as well. And I got to sit down and talk with him for about an hour or two. It's easy to like him. He's just so young. I just feel like the football, the best football is ahead of him. And he's like first round pick all day to me. That one was kind of a clean cut evaluation for me. Mm-hmm. I didn't think there was a lot of guesswork there. So Ariante Ursary, easier to poke holes in his game for me personally. Obviously a big, physical, strong guy. I don't think there's any questions there. It's just he's also pretty high cut, upright playing style, doesn't redirect very well. I would say his lateral quickness is below average. So that kind of sacrifices his ability to recover on an island against guys. When he lands his hands and things like that, he can end reps quickly, but ideally he's offered some protection with the steam, run heavy, play action heavy. Those sorts of systems, I think, would make sense for him to be able to stick at tackle. I see a similar level of prospect to Patrick Paul last year out of Houston, and now with Miami. Maybe like a little bit old school guy, Bobby Massey, that caliber of tackle. I could see him starting and sticking, but I just think the ceiling is more limited than some of these other guys. But yeah, there's stuff to like there.
Brandon Thorn, Trench Warfare. Check him out at Bleacher Report as well with all of the scouting reports, offensive line, defensive line analyst, but one of the best when it comes to breaking down the offensive line and oil masterminds with Duke Manyweather. Brandon, really appreciate the time. Love the stuff and love the breakdowns and the Substack. So I appreciate you joining us and giving us your thoughts on Josh Simmons. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. There's Brandon Thorn. You can check him out on Twitter, X, at Brandon Thorn NFL, THORN NFL. And again, he's also posted his conversation that he had with Josh Simmons. Sat down for an hour with him and going through different plays and schemes and things. This is one of the things that, quite frankly, Brett Veach talked about, in that they had him in for the top 30, and they brought up a number of things on the whiteboard or scheme or plays or concepts to see what his retention was with those things. And they liked what they heard, and they liked the fact that he still had, the memory of those things and able to go through it. So we'll see. Hopefully his patella tendon has the memory of what it did before the injury. That'd be great. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. We're at the Deck Supply. It is the spring sale going on today. Tomorrow they have the sales tax that they're going to take care of for you with the TimberTech, Fiberon. They will take care of the sales tax for you, so you can get ready to get that brand new deck out there, maybe an expansion, maybe it's a renovation, whatever it might be, that outdoor living space. Get it taken care of. The Deck Supply. We're hanging out here on this Friday edition of The Zone. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. We'll hang out with Mick Schaefer. He joins us next. All right, a Friday edition of The Zone right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you, Sterling Holmes, Mick Schaefer, the Drake. We had up until 2 o'clock. We're hanging out at the Deck Supply. Spring is here. It's time to build that dream deck at the Deck Supply. Fiber-on decking ready to roll with the spring sale today and tomorrow, last 2 days of the spring sale. Perfect time to save on the fiber-on decking here at the Deck Supply. They will pay the tax. They got it. Sales tax. Don't worry about it. You don't have to pay for that today and tomorrow. So just in time for your next project, TimberTech, if you're ready to do that ultimate outdoor hangout, TimberTech Deck Supply is bringing you some of the best stuff as well. And guess what? I mean, if you want to ask, hey, do they take care of the sales tax with TimberTech as well? You would be punctilious in assuming.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever heard that word.
It's from a Kingpin.
Punctilious. Well, then I have heard it. I just don't remember
They're
it.
a dictionary salesman. So you guys are selling dictionaries. You would be punctilious in assuming. But yes, it's the Deck Supply today and tomorrow. They'll take care of the sales tax for you.
And they're not duplicitous about it.
No, they aren't. Although you might have to duplicate a number of things to get that deck done. The very estimable Mick Schaefer is joining us here, KSHB 41 sports director.
Sports show. What are we doing?
Is with us. It's hard to estimate what Josh Simmons is going to be in the NFL because we just don't know, right? I mean, you know what, Mick?
We'll only be talking about this for like a year and a half.
I think we should talk more left tackle around here. I'm very happy that this offseason we don't
We've
have
not
to talk
squashed
about
that conversation, have we?
For 2 years now, we've been talking about left tackle.
It was funny. Was it Veach last night? Said, it'd be nice to one of these days to stop talking about left tackle. But when we had that figured out, it'll be another area. And that's and he goes, that's what's great about the NFL. I'm like, I don't think it's that great. No. How about you just figure out every position and win 5 Super Bowls in a row? That would be great. But that right there would be great.
But my thought too, I heard that and I thought I had the same thought process when he's like, it'd be nice to not have to talk about not have to attack the left tackle position every year. And then when he said, but then you got to get into other things, I'm like, okay, cool, let's do that.
Yeah, do that.
Let's do the other things because for 3 years now it's been about that one position. So
how about middle linebacker or second safety?
Let's do the other thing. Let's do the John Sherman.
Yeah.
Well, I'd like to know what a wild card team looks like. Dave Moore saying what a championship. I'd like to know what a wild card team looks like. I'd like to know what it looks like to not have to talk about left tackle in the offseason for 3 years in a row.
Wide receiver. Let's struggle with that one.
Nico Remigio.
Yes. Who's going to play defensive tackle this year? All right, let's do it. Let's have that conversation. You know why? Because Josh Simmons is your starting left tackle. We're going to 2026, right? Josh Simmons is your guy. You're good. Jalen Moore is going to slide over to right tackle, and Juwan Taylor's done in the 2026 season, and we don't have to talk about left tackle at that point moving forward. Let's address other positions now.
What if, hear me out, all of a sudden this year, Juwan Taylor figures it out, and he is just phenomenal.
Then he's going to get himself a payday after this year with another team.
Okay.
That's right.
As the Chiefs move on from him and his ridiculously high and untenable salary cap hit.
I woke up from my dream, but I just thought, what if he was great?
The good news, although it is left tackle and it's a very important position, half the league is doing that same thing with quarterback, right?
It's true.
There's a more important position, and the Chiefs have had that figured out but he's going into his 9th year next year. That's wild. It's his 30-year-old year.
I can't believe his
old man Pat.
His age starts with a 3.
I know.
It's giving me chills.
In September.
I want to throw up a little bit.
In September.
Yes.
When it was like September.
Man. If you keep singing, I'll be gone until November.
Is that wrong? Am I doing it?
No, it was a song. It was a song gone until November. All right, let's move on. I mean, you're the music guy, right?
I love doing that with any month. Just Earth, Wind, and Fire. Just any month. It's great.
July.
In November.
You remember the 23rd night of July. That was the original.
Kind of works.
They moved it to September. Mick Schaefer is hanging out with us, and we'll see who the starting tackle will be for the Chiefs in September. I think it'll be Jalen Moore. Mick, you were out there at Arrowhead last night. You heard Brett Veach and Andy Reid. You saw and heard Josh Simmons on the computer screen as well. Do you come away from last night hearing the coach and GM talk about the injury, feeling better?
I do.
Okay, so why is that?
Because, I feel better because I didn't want the pick to begin with. But, I mean, when you hear them talk and they discuss the medicals and not only that, not just the injury, they talk about, okay, the days, the weeks, the months after that to where, like, okay, where he is now, he is at a good spot. And that's the key, right? How are you rebounding from this? And, I mean, this is their livelihoods and their profession, and they're experts at it. And it was comforting for me to hear that, okay, yeah, no, we realize this is an injury that not everybody comes back from, but we feel good about it. And so you trust him. And look, it's kind of funny with the Eagles and the Chiefs, what you do at the when you draft every year at the end of the draft or into the first round, sometimes you roll the dice a little bit to where, like, okay, we can't get top 10 or top 15 talent. We just can't because we win all the time. Maybe we can if there's a red flag or if there's an injury concern or whatever, and both those teams try to do that.
And it's like you got 3 chances or 3 options to draft. If you're the Chiefs, 3 scenarios where you can draft a guy that potentially has top 10 offensive tackle talent. Either you have an injury to a specific player and you have a terrible season because that specific player means
I don't like that option.
I'm just saying.
I don't like that option.
That let's avoid that one. You trade your 2026 and maybe 27 first-rounders to move up and get the guy, or you take a chance and roll the dice on either a red flag character or an injury. The reason he's there.
And I guess call me ABBA.
Yeah.
Take a chance on me.
All right, there we go. Good for
and
you.
Just be better and smarter than the other teams, which the Chiefs have been. And I think you guys are talking about, like, this Veach or Reed talked about, like, the medical staff when they first heard about the injury, they were kind of leery about it. And then they were convinced. It reminds you of the Trey Smith thing when everybody, even the Chiefs, stood clear of him for 5 rounds.
5 rounds are like, not worth it. 6th round?
Yeah.
What about this Trey? Let's look at the medicals on this Trey Smith fella again.
Yeah.
You know?
But I think still, I mean, even if he rebounds and has a good career from this injury and gets past it, I don't know how much you bank on him for 2025, right? Are we thinking that, okay, he'll be but that's fine, and that you have Jalen Moore, and then after that maybe you have competition at that position.
Yeah, I went
and
into
look, if you're the second best left tackle, guess what? You can play guard. You can play right tackle.
Ask Kingsley.
Right? Yeah.
Ask Wanya. I went into it before the press conferences thinking it's going to be a redshirt year. Like the guys, I don't want to bank or count on him really doing anything this year. Anything you get from him that's a positive production will just be sort of a cherry on top. It'd be icing on the cake. But it doesn't sound like the Chiefs are viewing it that way. No. It sounds like the Chiefs are viewing it as, no, he's going to be ready for training camp. And then Andy Reid even saying it'll be, or Brett Veach saying it'll be a fascinating battle there at left tackle between Jalen Moore and Josh Simmons. I'm like, I don't know that I want to see the
We're
battle
doing
there.
the math on our fingers, right? Remember Eric Fisher, right after the Super Bowl?
Right.
I'm back by August.
Yeah.
Really?
It's an Achilles,
How
right?
many months between January or February and August?
Do you know what an Achilles injury is? Are you aware of that? Also doing the math when Andy Reid was like, well, this is a 6-month injury. I'm like, haven't we heard like patellar injuries are like longer and a more extended process than ACLs, and it's a longer recovery time and longer return to play? And they're like, at least it's not an ACL, am I right, guys? I mean, like, well,
and I think their actions in free agency and bringing in Jalen Moore makes you more comfortable with this pick, and that it's like that not all the eggs are in that basket, and in a Kingsley or a Wanye basket as well. They're diversified. And how many times
portfolio?
Yeah, how many times have we seen the Chiefs have just kind of this glaring problem, everybody wants fixed, and they kind of avoid it, or they tinker with other areas. So they watch that tape from the Super Bowl and are like, okay, this is it. This is priority number 1, 2, and 3 here in the offseason.
Last year, you need a left tackle, and they got one in the 2nd round.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that left tackle is now fighting for the starting job and did start. So it was last year. It's like, you got to get yourself up.
It's a big investment in that position in the offensive line.
I will say my concern with this, dude, is that we were all thrilled with Kingsley. We were all super happy. We're like, how did he fall to the Chiefs at this spot? Kingsley, the Chiefs now have their left side fixed.
Yeah.
And I don't want to look back in a year and be like, what were the signs that we should have known?
Yeah, I don't know
You
if
know
I
what I'm
thought
saying?
Kingsley was going to start right away because we knew he was going to
I
battle
said
with
Wanye.
Wanye.
I
I was
said Wanye.
surprised when he beat out Wanye in training camp.
My guess was like Donovan Smith.
Yeah,
or
sure, like
a
they
tackle like that,
make that move.
So that was my guess.
And look, I don't think Eric Fisher was bad for few years in this
That's
town.
my whole
and turned
point,
into,
though. It
I don't
takes
think,
so long
I don't think
for
the book is
tackles.
written on Kingsley.
Yeah,
Agreed.
You know?
Agreed.
We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. The book is written on that segment.
Bye.
More Zone coming along, hanging out at the Deck Supply, 105th and Metcalf on a Friday edition of the Zone. More next. I like it, Rick. Keep going.
We're all these sounds are being made with our mouths.
That's right. Into a microphone.
Acapella with the zone.
Well, it's not acapella because we got the background music. It's acapella for the podcast.
Yeah.
It's an acapella podcast. If you're listening on the podcast, you got the acapella. Mick has the background.
It's our podcasts. What are you listening to? A podcast.
Aka podcast. It's Aka podcast.
Aka podcast.
Hanging out at
Acapateller.
Yes, that's right. The Deck Supply is our location today, where they have today and tomorrow their spring sale going on. It is over after tomorrow, and that means you'll be back to paying sales tax because they're going to take care of the sales tax this weekend at the Deck Supply. So,
if you want something that won't tear, if you want something that will not tear its patellar tendon, that is a deck from the Deck Supply.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, the tendons are much stronger.
A lot stronger tendons.
A lot.
Don't even have to worry about it. This would be my first-round draft pick.
Why do you make bodies with patella tendons if they can tear? Why weren't we smart enough back in the day and evolved to the point to where we don't have patellar tendons that can? Why don't they make the whole plane?
Hopefully, we can ask that someday. Why
first question. Don't they make the plane out of the thing that can't be destroyed?
Yeah. Make the whole plane. Make the whole body out of indestructible body parts. Just smart is what that is. That's what I would do if I were to go back in time and have my hands on the evolution of it. I'd make it to where nobody gets injured.
Make your whole body have like the cartilage in your ear. You can bend that any which way.
Yeah, that's
so
right.
These
we can all be
cigarettes
Gumby.
weren't tobacco, right? I can tell from this conversation these were not tobacco cigarettes.
No, I mean our whole body can just be the wacky waving inflatable arm filling tube man, just all over the place. It's just like, wow, that guy has no ligaments or joints at all. No, not anymore. Not since the 1500s. Remember that evolution from the 1500s? We got rid of joints back then. Okay, now we're just all waving arms and Gumby bodies.
God's like, it took thousands of years for you to invent football. I wasn't planning on this. All right, I didn't look that far into the future. Okay.
You think I knew about
I planned you for hunting and gathering. Okay, I didn't know about all the sports the Americans would invent.
I didn't know about electricity.
1900s.
I gave you the sun. That was the electricity.
Yes,
what do you need electricity for? Another light. You had the sun. You don't need the sun when it goes down. What more do you want from me?
We're reflecting it off the moon. You can see at night, dummies.
I've given you the moon. I even put a man on the moon. Okay, it's made out of cheese. I did a lot of things for you. And now you're all like, electricity. How was I supposed to know there was going to be this game called football? Sorry, football.
Even I didn't see that.
Where I'm from, it's football. It's not football.
We figured it out.
That's why, Sterling.
We have exceeded God's expectations.
Yeah.
I feel like that.
Only Americans would conclude that.
I should have known better, but that pill you gave me and told me it was a cheeseburger was not a cheeseburger, and this conversation is off the rails.
No, I don't think it is. I think we're getting to the bottom of things here. We're figuring out. See, people don't just want to. They don't want to tune in and hear like just a generic sports show. They want to know about history, evolution, and
patellar tendons.
Yeah,
biology.
Right. All right, hanging out at the Deck Supply, 105th and Metcalf, our location today. Spring sale going on over the next couple days, today and tomorrow, as they're going to take care of sales tax for you. Fiberon, TimberTech, they've got it all right here at the Deck Supply, 105th and Metcalf. Mick Schaefer hanging out with us. One more hour to go on this Friday edition of the Zone Post first round. And the Chiefs take Josh Simmons, and we'll see who they have with their 3 picks tonight. I want to play this clip because I thought it was interesting with Brett Veach. This is clip number 6, please, Drake. Clip number 6, Brett Veach was asked about, the importance of the left tackles, but sort of the when I was sort of thinking about Brett Veach and post round 1 and what happens tonight. There are a lot of mock drafts out there. Well, Brett Veach weighed in on mock drafts while talking about the importance of the left tackle position.
It was obviously a need, and these guys are hard to get, and we talk about it all the time. Left tackles don't typically become free when free agency starts, and sometimes it takes one of these scenarios, an injury or something out of the ordinary for a guy like this to fall. So he was certainly up there, and there was actually this happens every year. I think we only had 14 or 15 guys. He was in that weird landing space because prior to the injury he would have been in that number count, but there was a little there is going to be a rehab process there. So, but he was certainly a guy that made sense for us, and it's a weird deal when I know sometimes with these mock drafts we all follow them and there's so many of them. Typically, the guy that most people are kind of penciling you in at never really happens, and this is one of those weird deals where I kind of joke with the staff. I was like, yeah, there's a good chance, because I think when you look at the board and you looked at Green Bay and Houston. When Houston traded out, then you're looking there could be a window here, because a lot of these teams now, when you're talking pick 26, 27, 28, 20, they have tackles. Washington took one. They did just trade for Tunsil, but so it's not to say they couldn't take them, like Washington's example, but the other teams, the Buffaloes and the Ravens and those teams, you felt like, I think once we got past Green Bay there, we thought that that this window could open up, and I told the guys, and been working on this, just being patient, and going to be really excited tomorrow to have those picks and be able to maneuver now, and then cherry on top was getting a 5th round, because we did have that, we have the 2 3s, the 4, and then no 5 or no 6. So this keeps us in play, and our staff has done a really good job of picking up talent late. So that was super important to us as well.
I think Brett Veach just bold-faced lied to everybody there for a little bit when he was talking about after Green Bay, they felt pretty good, that pocket that he would be there. And he said, I told those guys just be patient. Brett Veach told everybody in the room to be patient. Let's not trade up. Be good. He'll fall to us, guys. Let's be patient. All right, let's not get antsy. Let's be patient. Josh Simmons will be there at the. Okay, Brett, you scoundrel. Nobody believed you.
Let's give him credit. Back. He traded back.
I know,
barely
right?
Backed up a little bit.
I like how Adam Teicher said another golf clap for Brett Veach, because when he traded back to get Sky Moore, the first ever trade back, the room gave him a little golf clap when he traded back there. So another little golf clap.
So are Eagles fans upset that they gave up a 5th-round pick to move up one spot?
I would be somewhat annoyed.
I would be too, because I'm trying to figure out the logic there, and that they knew the Chiefs weren't going to take him.
That's
their offense, defense,
okay.
right?
Yeah.
So they had to assume the Chiefs are on the phone with other buyers,
and the Chiefs wouldn't tell them they're not.
Yes.
So
and they would behoove them to say I got 3 other guys on the line right now. So whether it was true or not, but at that point though, if he's really your guy and you're willing to trade up to get him, you've survived 30 picks so far.
Yeah.
Roll the dice for one more, and is it really worth a 5th-round pick to move up one spot? When at that point you have to be 95% sure or higher
jump ahead.
that you're going to get your guy.
Let's play this clip then, because I think it might go along with that conversation about the trade down and the Eagles trading up one spot because of sort of the timing of it. Michael Silver is reporting today that 17 days ago the Jags and Browns agreed on the trade. moving from
Wow.
that it's been.
I heard it was days ago. I didn't know it was 17.
17 days ago they have been. So the
How
entire
they keep that under wraps?
So the entire time Cleveland's been talking about how amazing Travis Hunter is. Oh, he's so good. He's so amazing. He's this, he's that. Because my God, they're giving us these draft picks to move that 3 spots. Oh my God.
So wait a minute. We had to wait the 10 minutes on the clock just for them to do something they already
I
knew?
think they probably put it in, and then the NFL stalls.
Yeah, you gotta, of course.
Yeah,
Because
Cam
it's
Ward,
maybe-
the Titans had no idea they're taking Cam Ward. They'd use all 10 minutes.
Yeah,
They had
they
no
did.
idea.
we have a trade. Ooh, now we got to talk about it because clearly it wasn't public knowledge at that point.
It's a TV show
Yes,
as much as a draft.
Brett Veach weighs in on this was part of his opening when he talked about picking Josh Simmons, but in this answer he talks about what happened with that trade down and how it came to fruition. It's clip number 4.
And we did a ton of work on Josh. I think everyone knows, when he's healthy and the tape he had early on last year before the injury, I mean, it puts him up there in the upper echelon of, what he could be and a future starter and difference maker at left tackle. But again, feel good about where we were with the process with him and all the work that we put in, and from the X's and O's with our coaches to the knee aspect. So extremely fortunate to get him. And at the end of the draft there, obviously I have a good relationship with Howie, and does a tremendous job. And when you get to these picks late in the draft and they're eyeing a particular player, they're certainly worried about maybe getting jumped by another team. So we've done trades like this before where we just get to the point where it's just, tell me offense or defense. You don't got to tell me the player. Howie mentioned defense, and again, we had done similar trades in the past. Just tell me the side of the football. So they got a really good football player in the linebacker from Alabama, and knew he was good for his word, and it made sense for us because obviously we were going to take Josh there at 31. So it was a win-win for them, and we got the guy we wanted there. So that's kind of how that trade went down.
It's a win on one side, I think.
Yeah.
And it's not a loss on the other, but it was a tie. We'll call it that. But I
forget
you get an extra pick.
I forget which clip it is in for Brett Veach. I thought it was that one, so I probably should have found a way to include it in that one. But he was asked at some other point in the press conference about moving up or things like that. And he said that there were conversations he was having with the Eagles and other teams were calling, and he said something along the lines of it didn't seem like it was big enough to then pay attention to that while we're talking with the Eagles. So, and he had mentioned like 28, 29, 30 around there. And I wonder if the Eagles and Chiefs agreed on the deal before it even got to 31. To where the Eagles were like, look, if our guy is there, this is the trade. We will do the trade.
He said he was on the phone with the Eagles for a while, right?
Yes.
Leading up to it.
Right. So I'm wondering, like, the Chiefs and Bills agreed to the trade with Mahomes, that if Mahomes is there at 10, here's the deal. This is what we've already agreed to. Mahomes is there. All right, let's do it. Whereas the Eagles and Chiefs, the Chiefs may have said, okay, we've turned down other offers. We're taking your deal with the 5th round here at 31. And you're taking a defensive guy, and if that defensive guy is there, this is the deal. Yeah. Howie, defensive guy's there, we'll execute the deal so you don't trade with anybody else. So we're willing to give up a 5th round. Like, I'm willing to pick this guy in the 7th round so that I don't have to deal with him going as a UDFA preferred free agent with somebody else. I'm going to give up a 5th round because you may be talking to teams that are trading up to get this guy that shouldn't be there. So let's go ahead and do that. And he had mentioned, too, like he was on the phone with teams until he said until like 28, 29, 27, 28, 29, and then the phones weren't necessarily ringing at that point. So I'm guessing teams were looking at James Pierce because the Falcons traded back in to get James Pierce. Malachi Starks went to Baltimore. Teams might be looking and saying, hey, we're going to trade back in if Malachi Starks is there. Tyreek Williams, Josh Connerly, those are names that teams might have been looking at the pick 31. While also the Eagles are saying if teams are trading up, hey, if you're taking calls about a player, we'll trade you a 5th rounder. And so I think there's
they might have been spooked by those late
there might have been a chance that
first round trades
that the Eagles were like, bleep, he never got taken, but we did agree to the 5th rounder, so we're doing it. We've already executed this trade, and we're going to go get our guy. And if it costs us a 5th rounder, that's fine.
I wonder how much too those 3rd day picks are devalued now because we heard Brett talk about how, because of NIL, a lot of times those 5th, 6th, 7th rounders are staying in school. They're going to make more money, right, to stay in school. And so now, if like 6th and 7th round guys are kind of like UDFA guys of the past, is that 5th round pick more like a 7th round pick? Is it they value it like that now, to where like, okay, we got to make our hay here in the first couple days here, and then after that, everything else is kind of a crapshoot.
Yeah, the Eagles had, I think, going into the draft 3 5th rounders. So they're like, we get job. You can have 5th rounders.
Yeah, and 2 others.
Yeah, might not even make the team to begin with at that point.
We got lots of 5th rounders. I mean, you wanted a 5th rounder? Oh, I thought you actually wanted something of value to us. Yeah, you can have a 5th rounder, but it's great. I mean, it's absolute. If it's
it
a
bridges
win,
the gap, right? I mean, it's at the end of the 5th round, and you had nothing between the 4th and the 7th, so it's right there on the border of 5 and 6, and so you have.
And if it's a win, if it's a win-win for one team, it's a win-win for the Chiefs.
And they might not even pick that. They might use it to get a move up tonight.
Yeah, might move around tonight. They might. I mean, they've got a 4th rounder next year that they got for Joe Tooney. They got the 5th rounder now this year. So
I have always wondered
could move around.
How the trade process works when you're on the phone, because you do have to take a lot of them at their word.
They do. I marvel at it. I thought there would be some like all this paperwork and a big board that the NFL has set up. We got to approve this. There's a big rubber stamp, right? And no, it's more just like, yeah, we'll do it. I know him. He's cool. He's good for
because
it. He's good.
It's
an IOU.
He's taking defense.
It's just as
and they're
good
like,
as trades.
"Oh, we're taking Josh Simmons." We're like,
yeah, but are you gonna burn a bridge and be that GM? Like nobody's gonna ever trade with you anymore.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right, so you could do that once.
You can do it once.
You're right.
Do that
once.
And if it was for Patrick Mahomes, great, do it once. Yeah. Sorry, everybody. We know that nobody's going to trade with us again, but we don't care. We got Patrick Mahomes. Not that they did that, but I think at that point,
it's a lot. It feels like on a handshake, not even a handshake, a virtual handshake.
But it could also be like a respect between GMs, to where Howie and Brett Veach, like Jerry Jones and Brett Veach, probably a level of respect if Brett Veach was trading up in 2023 to the Cowboys spot, and the Cowboys were like, where are you looking? And they said, defense. Well, then we're not going to trade because we're looking the same thing. Okay, Brett Veach could have lied and be like, we're looking at special teamers, kicker, but Sebastian Janikowski. But no, this is what we're looking at. All right, that's cool. We'll figure something else out.
There's got to be some guy in New York, right, in the NFL office that they're calling, or multiple people, right? To process it through, make it official, right?
It's the same people that are doing the baseball replays.
That's what they're looking
at it. It's like, I think this trade is safe.
Although the trades happen a lot quicker than baseball replays.
They're all in Secaucus, New Jersey, getting it done. They're all sequestered in Secaucus. I guess the thought process too is, if this was done in advance, right? Then what if the pick goes around and Howie's like, well, now it doesn't matter. We don't want to give up our 5th because we know you're not taking Cam.
I don't know at one point it goes from a verbal commitment to you've signed your NLI, your national letter of intent.
That's kind of my point. Is like, because if let's just say they do it at 29 and they're like, okay, yeah, so we'll do it if this happens. Then all of a sudden you're like, oh well, shoot, the board fell completely different than we thought.
I think it goes back to being professional.
You got to have somebody in the war room that's in charge of just talking, I'm sure, with the NFL and saying, hey, we're doing this. These are the parameters. Check with the Eagles guy, that has the same job as me. Make sure it all lines up. Then
and also at pick 29, the teams might have called and the Chiefs might have said, no, we're not open for business. We've already traded our 31st pick to the Eagles, where Howie Roseman saying, this is why we're doing is we're trading up because teams are going to be calling you.
Sure.
We're getting this 5th rounder, and it's a done deal. You won't take any other calls.
Okay? I think GMs are nicer to each other in real life than they were on draft day.
Yeah, probably. Owners are different. Owners would absolutely backstab the other owners.
That's what I think too.
Yes, because they've made their money in business and everything.
Hold on, you're not going to backstab this guy?
Yes, exactly.
It's right there. Just stab him in the back. What's wrong with it? Give me the damn knife. I'll stab him in the back for you.
He's showing you his back.
They're all Logan Roys.
Why are you not stabbed? You know what? I kind of feel like I need to fire you. If you're not willing to stab that guy in the back, I don't know that you're willing to do whatever it takes to be my GM. I need a backstabber around here. All right, back scratcher. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours, but I want you to stab him in the back. All right, you and I, we've got tit for tat. We got quid pro quo. That guy, you need to put that quill into his back and take that pick as well. But yeah, I mean, I would say with Howie Roseman that it's probably a level of trust that here's the deal. I do wonder though, like how early some of these trades are done and figured out, because I don't know that Atlanta had a deal worked out with Houston that hey, if by the way, if James Pierce falls all the way to 25, here's the parameter. Here are the parameters of this deal. It might have been to where at pick 21 or 22, they reach out to Houston and they're like, "Hey, if this guy is there, if our guy is there, this is what we want to do. Are you okay with doing this? If maybe there's a guy you want that isn't there or something like that."
I have to believe there's a lot of groundwork laid beforehand for all these shows. It's only 10 minutes, right? Or maybe 20 or 30 in the picks leading up to it. And you have 32 teams, and multiple teams could be calling at once. And so I have to believe there are kind of deals struck, or at least some what-ifs put out there between a lot of these teams. I think Philly just felt bad for hammering the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. So I'm like, here's that fifth-round pick.
I said the Texans, I meant the Rams, because the Rams now get a first-rounder next year. So we went in a draft. We entered a draft where everybody had their own first-rounder, and we left the draft with 2 teams next year not having a first-round pick.
What if the night before the Super Bowl, Veach and Howie Roseman got drunk? And they're like, all right, if you beat my ass, I'll give you give me a pick. If I beat yours, I'll give you one, okay? Yeah.
How about
Take a shot.
Whoever wins drafts 31. All right, that's it. Whoever wins, you give a fifth rounder drafts 31.
We'll
okay, deal because if that's the deal. Because if I beat you, I'll give you fifth rounder. You beat me, I get a fifth rounder. Right? We good. All right, man. This is great. We should do this more often, man.
We've done it a lot actually, a couple times in 3 years.
Well, Howie, I look forward to you taking one of our fifth rounders.
Yes.
Crap, we don't have a fifth.
We don't
rounder.
have that.
Hey, Andy,
we have 3 7s. You have 2 of those.
Andy, I sort of wrote a check. We don't have a fifth rounder. You're not allowed to win this game.
Yeah.
We're
don't even get close because we know how good you are in close games.
We're going to need to get we don't have a fifth rounder. If we lose this, we get a fifth rounder. So what would you rather have, a Lombardi or a fifth rounder? So, this is all about the draft.
You already got Lombardis.
Yeah,
You're fine.
Because what if that fifth rounder helps you win a Lombardi? You know what I mean? So you can have, the Lombardi, or maybe you can get a Lombardi in the future.
Maybe.
What was the biggest surprise of the draft for you guys?
Cowboys.
That's a big one. The guard.
Guard at number 12.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't care how good the guard is.
I
It's
love
12th overall pick.
He was my favorite person of the draft, though. I loved his reaction. It's genuine. I don't need Travis Hunter dancing. I get older and older. I'm all about sportsmanship and guys' reaction. I loved it. He had the best reaction, the best interview.
Did you hear what he told Micah Parsons this morning?
No.
On his podcast, he told Micah Parsons that he loves football, and what he loves about football is when he hits the other guys so much that he sees the love of football leave their eyes.
That's pretty good.
And Micah Parsons just jumped up and started clapping. I'm like, yeah, I could see why you would fall in love with that dude as a football player. I'm still not taking a guard at number 12.
The biggest surprise for me is how kind of like meat and potatoes the draft was. It was no nonsense. Those first picks kind of fell off the board like a lot of people thought. And then you look at the positions wise, they're like, we're not messing around with 6 quarterbacks this year, right? And, despite the fact you think 3 or 4 running backs might go, we'll do 2 here. We're going edge, we're going offensive line, we're going D tackle, and we're going from these 5 schools, basically. Right? Ohio State, Michigan, right? Georgia, Texas A&M. We're not overthinking this. You had the North Dakota State kid. Other than that, we're drafting guys that have made a difference at the Power 4 level, and so my surprise was maybe that there weren't a whole lot of surprises.
Yeah, I liked that 2 teams in the division for the Chiefs took running backs.
Yeah, let's go. Is that how you stop Mahomes now? You just ball control?
I like that. Especially when I had just said that one of the players that I think is not going to perform up to expectations is Ashton Genty, and I'm glad. The only thing that would have been better was
because they're high expectations.
The only thing that would have been better is if the Raiders traded up to get him. Then it would have been even. I'm like, the Raiders taking Genty. Hell yes.
The one thing I will say,
the Chargers are going to take Marion Hampton. Okay, I don't like having to go up against Marion Hampton, but I mean, I'd rather those guys take running backs. But also, like the Denver Broncos, I'm not a big fan of them having one of the best defenses in the league and then going and getting Dre Greenlaw and then getting one of the best cornerbacks in the league at number 20 to pair up with Patrick Surtain. It's like, well, you already stop it, Denver. You already had a good. And Denver's going, yeah, we're trying to win a division, so we don't need a running back to win the division. We need cornerbacks and linebackers and getting after Mahomes, and then we're also going to score it a little bit with Bo Nix last year.
You're the Chiefs. You beat Derrick Henry. You beat McCaffrey. You shut down Saquon Barkley. Go ahead. Draft running backs, AFC West. Go right ahead.
Doing it.
Make them the best. Draft the best running backs. Get lots of them.
Get every of the running backs, man, please. They should draft all running backs. I think the Raiders need more running backs tonight.
I do think Genty's a stud. Amarian Hampton, I actually think is a great fit for the Chargers. I called it, 5 picks before. I go, he's not getting past L.A. because they were so explosive and so talented when they had J.K. Dobbins, and then J.K. Dobbins got injured, and that offense and that team really started to sputter. Yeah, they need some wide receivers. Yeah, they need some, a tight end if Loveland would have fallen. But I actually think Amari Hampton can really help open up that offense. We know what Harbaugh likes to do. You have a great quarterback already. You have really good tackles, obviously, with Alt and Rashawn Slater. You can get outside with Amari Hampton. I think he actually fits that offense really well. No, I actually thought Amari Hampton made a lot of sense in L.A. Would I have loved if my team drafted a running back at 22? I don't know, but I do think the actual fit of Hampton in L.A. makes a ton of sense.
Well, speaking of calling picks, how about my guy Nick Jacobs, number 1 in the country in mock drafts?
Yeah.
And the Huddle Report is a compilation of, and you have to apply to be in there. You have to be it's not just some guy on his couch, right? And so a couple years ago he got in, and it's a couple hundred drafts. Yeah. But he's right there with Rappaport and all these, all the ESPN guys in there, and he got 12 out of 32. Correct. That is hard. Because
you got to get player and team.
So the second pick, if you picked Hunter going the second pick and you didn't pick Browns, you didn't get it. Or sure, you didn't pick the Jaguars, you didn't get it right.
Right.
You got a player and.
But they also judge it too on players that you had going in the first, and he got 28 of 32.
He got 28 of 32.
First round picks.
And he got 12 guys going to that team.
Yeah, 28 of 32 in the first round as a mock draft is incredibly difficult. It's not like, I put together my NCAA tournament bubble teams, and I ended up getting like 65 of 68. Yeah, my son could probably get 65.
Right.
You're only talking about 6 teams for like 5 spots. 6 teams for like 2 spots or whatever. You're probably going to have, the ones that are there. So you're going to already start off with 60 teams that are in the tournament. So, but I got 65 of 68. Yeah. Okay, cool. 28 of 32 first round picks because, how many people had Will Johnson falling out of the first round? Not many. How many people had, Luther Burden falling out of the first round, except for Vegas that had him at plus 300, and I fell for that one. Speaking of falling, Mike Green falling out of the first round, although, clearly some more stuff to what's going on behind the scenes. Shadir Sanders, they were on ESPN talking about, there was a 96% chance that Sanders would be gone by this pick. And then you had Mel Kiper, who find you somebody that will defend you to the death the way that Mel Kiper defended Shadir Sanders last night.
It was.
Find you somebody that believes in you as much as Mel Kiper believed in Shadir Sanders as a first-round pick. Because every single pick, it was Mel Kiper. Well, this is the spot where I think it's got to be Shadir Sanders.
Yeah. I guess we should have maybe predicted that, in that they took 6 quarterbacks last year, right? And there's not many teams that – there's a lot of teams that need them, but there's not many teams that are going to draft a quarterback this year. And it turns out there was just one without a trade up back into the first round.
And Jackson Dart being the guy that will join the quarterback room of Jameis Winston, Russell Wilson, and Tommy Cutlets.
What's the last thing?
Jackson Dart.
What's the last thing coaches want, period, but especially at the quarterback position, is outside noise and distractions. And how many of these guys are like, you know what, Shadur could work here, but his dad, right? But anytime something goes wrong in the South, I don't want to hear about it. He's not good enough, right? The old Buddy Bell quote, you're not good enough to be an a-hole. He's not good enough to deal with that stuff.
Well, do you want a quarterback whose mom has bigger guns than you do? So Jackson Dart's mom, who is
I didn't see.
She was yoked.
Let's go.
Good God, I know where he got his arm strength from. It ain't from his pudgy dad. Sorry, no offense to Mr. Dart.
Wow.
I'm just saying, Mr. Dart probably great shape in his day. Probably, but. I'm pretty sure, she actually hurt one of his fingers when she shook his hand and gave him a hug and, crushed his back a little bit. I'm like, she is freaking yoked, man. I don't know that I want that guy whose mom has bigger arms than he does, dude. Maybe hit the weight room a little bit, dude. That was my biggest takeaway from last night was Jackson Dart's mom's arms.
Makes sense.
It's huge. And
totally normal.
And the baby throwing up on TV. That was cool, too.
I missed that. I heard about it.
That was cool, too. Babies, it's so baby.
That's what they do.
It's so baby just to randomly throw up on somebody,
Who throws up more, babies or dogs?
Babies.
It's funny. What'd you guys watch? NFL Network broadcast, ESPN, ABC? There's 3.
Good question.
We got them all on.
Yeah, I didn't watch the
and they're all different times, but it was funny how on ESPN broadcast, they're talking to the player basically after every pick. ABC talking to the parents, right? They're pulling at the heartstrings, they're talking to, and it's funny
ABC,
just because, it's the broadcast side, you have the ESPN, more sportsy cable side.
Yeah.
It was entertaining.
What I found interesting is when
broadcasts.
both of them on at the same time, how they'll have a player with Roger Goodell, and the player's already been with Roger Goodell and held up the jersey, and then like ESPN will show that guy walking through the hallway of the teams and then getting out to Roger Goodell. I'm like, well, this was clearly recorded, and now they're playing it back as live because that dude has already been with Roger Goodell and moved on.
Or are they that far behind?
I don't think they weren't that far behind because it was Roger Goodell announcing on both screens at the same time.
Jerseys?
But then, like 3 minutes after he comes out and is with Roger Goodell, he's on the other screen. I'm like, well, it's just how they play their clips. Their clip goes longer. This guy's already with Goodell. We're recording this. Okay, now the guy's walking out with Roger Goodell. You guys will talk about this on the screen, not behind you, because this has already happened. It was a pretty interesting production from that standpoint to see those things.
How many jerseys with their last name
Could be a
are
lot.
stitched beforehand, and what do they do?
And they
with
do it
the
right then.
jerseys?
They do it right then. Yeah, so just iron it on real quick.
What do they do with the other jerseys?
They might Velcro, maybe. I don't know.
How many Shedeur Sanders jerseys are out there right now with his name on
There's
it?
there's a number 1 Chicago Bears Mahomes jersey somewhere.
Yes.
In a village that's walking around.
That's hilarious.
Number 1 Mahomes Bears. We'll take a timeout, come back. We're hanging out at the Deck Supply More Zone next. You can hear Jack Johnson tonight, rounds 2 and 3 of the NFL Draft right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Who did it last night? Was it Seren last night?
Seren and Curtis and Mark Boerichter and Cal. And very annoyed Adam Dravetta.
Petro's going to have to take like a week off for working tonight.
Why was there a very annoyed Adam Dravetta?
When is he not?
Because he's never annoyed. But he was last night.
Was he annoyed that he's like, I just quit this place?
No.
Why am I back?
He was annoyed that the Chiefs with the player, Andy Reid and Brett Veach, were done at like 11:33. And Adam Dravetta sent a text to him and said, are you kidding me? The first draft I don't do, we're not listening to Brett Veach at 1 in the morning or 12:45. It's done before 11:30. And then Seren read the text and said, you're number one emoji, number one emoji, number one emoji, number one emoji, number one emoji.
11:30 was late enough.
Right, but it's not as late as it typically. Like, I know in years past we've been sitting there late listening to. They finally bring Brett Veach out. Okay, they're finally bringing Andy Reid. Right, they finally got this player on the horn, and yeah. So last night 11:30. I think picking that late. I think almost everybody probably would have settled out of court. You look.
Oh yeah, I'm
parched. Go ahead and get yourself some of that settling
Anytime
out
he
of court
says
drink.
I have to drink. It's the rules.
It's a small sample size and settling out of court are the.
You got to say that a lot.
You got to take a drink rule for those.
I've worked it into my vernacular in my everyday speech. I've said it multiple times, and this year probably.
Yeah. Well, that's actually when you've been arrested.
Yes, like literal circumstances.
Moderate sample size and settle in court. Actually,
yes,
I'm a big settle in court.
Yes, so the large sample size of settling in court is what you are up to. What do you think? Let's go on record. And Mick, you look like you really wanted to say something there.
No, I'm good.
Great. Let's go on record. What do we think is on the docket tonight for the Chiefs? We can go positional group, names if there's one.
Definitely a D end. You take advantage of that depth that's allegedly there, and there are a handful taken last night. Maybe you strike.
I like how you don't really
earlier.
believe Brett. The depth that's allegedly there.
Yeah.
Veach said it was there, but I'm not going to really. What does he know about drafts?
Allegedly, he was really building up the D ends and taking it away from the D tackles.
Well, they went pretty quickly too. Those defensive tackles. I thought the Chiefs would. I had them trading up to get Derek Harmon. That was what I thought would happen.
All I know is
that was my pick.
Every defensive lineman that's been taken, there's another guy that was on his college team that's going to be taken or has been taken already. I mean, the Georgia line, the Michigan line, the Ohio State line. Texas A&M's got another guy that's going to be taken here pretty soon.
Yeah, Shermer Stewart. It's like Shamar Stewart and Shermer Stewart and Jeff Stewart and all the different types
It is
of
the
Stewarts.
heyday for D-lines. And I think we're seeing it at all levels, starting with high school on up, that like a lot of times you're taking your best athlete and you're putting him on the defensive line at D end, and if they eat a little bit too much, you're going to D tackle.
Exactly right. So it's Shamar Stewart and Shamar Turner. Turner is the defensive tackle. Shamar Stewart. Boy,
for who? For
A&M.
Wasn't it Nick Scorton? Wasn't he an A&M guy too?
I like Nick Scorton.
Scorton's there too.
I could see.
As an edge.
I don't know if it's the last.
I don't think he gets there, but I would love Nick Scorton at that spot.
I almost had the Chiefs taking him last night.
And then we have Landon Jackson from Arkansas is another intriguing name.
Yeah.
I do wonder if, depending on how long Luther Burden falls, do the Chiefs use some draft capital to try and trade up and get a guy? Again, I'm not saying because I'm a Mizzou guy, but because I actually
feel like you're saying it kind of.
feel like
it's because he's a great schematic fit. He really is with the yak ability he provides. With the concerns of Rashee Rice,
I just think really good players are a schematic fit, and he's a really good player.
but like there's certain wide receivers. They're not going to go after traditional X because that's not what the Chiefs do. They like to go after a guy who can play that power slot role, but who also get a lot of yards after catch. That is Luther Burden.
We talked with Ken Swanson yesterday about JTT from Ohio State. I'm not going to attempt to say his last name. Tuamo'olau.
Ted McMillan went in the top 10 yesterday.
Yes, right.
It's just Ted.
I'm going to call him JTT because his first name's JT and his last name starts with T.
I tried to Nick mocked him. Not like that kind of mock. Put him in his mock
You're not
draft.
going to be drafted in the top 20.
Is that a mockingbird? Is that a mockingbird?
He's over there. He's the guy in the back that's cutting hair, but he's teasing the hair right now. I'm going to Hawaii and you aren't.
I worked on the pronouncer yesterday for about 3 minutes. I'm like, you know what? I'm just not going to say him. We're going to have him in the full screen. I'm not going to in the graphic. I'm not going to say every
JTT
name.
or Ted?
JTT.
What about the
JTT.
guard from Arizona?
Which one?
Jonah S.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Savia Inaia. Right?
I like the DN from Boston College hasn't gone yet, right? Oh gosh.
Donovan
last name.
Donovan E.
Yeah, E. Yeah.
Yeah, he's Izeraku.
I want him just to see. I want to get him just to see if he can duplicate his last college game ever. Because his last college game ever, I don't know, his bowl game. What did Boston College make a bowl this year? I have no idea. If it was ACC or whatever. His last college game ever, he had 3.5 sacks and 17 quarterback pressures. What? 17 in one game. I'm like, I don't know. If you can do that once, you can do it again, right?
I just want to call him Easy E.
All I know is the Chiefs need a Will Johnson, a Mike Green. Give me these
please.
Jared Wilson.
Josh Simmons was great. I can handle
Harris.
that.
Trey Amos. If he's there, I'm down with that. Adding more speed to the team in the secondary. Guy ran like a 4.29, 4.3 as a cornerback. Can help out in the
I love that the Bills
return game.
were like,
Jalen Knoll. If he's there,
the Bills were like, hey, so you know how we let the Chiefs get Xavier Worthy, that super fast receiver? We're going to need to stop that. So let's get the fastest cornerback in the draft and get a guy who runs a 4.28 just so we can put him on Xavier Worthy.
So listen, if we're going to be at Jalen Knoll's party tonight and Ariante Ursery's party tonight. So if at 63 they want to take Ursery and at 66 they want to take Knoll, we'd love that.
Let us know who has the better party.
We'll do.
Okay.
We'll do. Yeah.
Like who has better snacks.
Yeah, sure. I'm stuck in the studio, so I'll have to the word from the reporters.
They're like, they had a regular Coke. Oh, they only had diet.
Yeah. We had Matt at Lee Summit North last night. And in his live shot, he mentioned the pizza. And we had Mackenzie at the Chiefs. I don't know what they served, but she talked about the meal. I'm like, where's the station? Election night, you would get pizza.
Yeah, right,
so we didn't. So I ordered pizza for everybody.
Was anybody
put it on the company card? No, I'm not that nice of a guy.
Right.
But I went through the website and did all the legwork.
I'm proud of you. That actually is annoying because then you might get a call of the pizza's here. You got to go let them in. And you got to tip the guy.
Sorry if I'm speaking out of turn here, but was Armand's draft party that
didn't have one? Well, he had one. It wasn't open to media.
Okay, cool.
It was in town.
Well, that's fine. I got an invite, but I couldn't go. It was a general invite for Lee Summit North alum.
Yeah,
so
that was it.
I thought that was odd. Just to send it to everybody. It was weird.
Mimbu is a typical offensive line. Doesn't say a whole lot, right?
Yeah.
Humble dude.
It's like,
goes out there and
I don't want you guys filming my reaction when the Jets draft me. Okay.
Yes, exactly.
So please.
We got a Zoom though with the Jets media. We were listening to it, and he was like, "Yeah, the whole time I had a feeling I was going to the Jets.
Be a Jet the whole time. The whole time. I mean, heck, we heard that last night from Josh Simmons.
The New York teams didn't do it right. Like, they draft the quietest kid to New York, and then the Giants move up. Like, they're taking Shadur. I mean, can you imagine Shadur Sanders in New York? His dad was imagining that, I guarantee you.
Yeah.
And then they don't do that.
Yeah, no, instead it's Jackson Dart, and that quarterback room is Jameis Winston,
They're paying
Russell
3
Wilson,
quarterbacks.
Jackson Dart, and Tommy
DeVito.
Cutlets. That's right. That's the quarterback room is Russ, Jameis, Cutlets, and Jackson Dart.
What's the normal percentage you want to be under for your salary cap that you're paying your quarterback? Is it 40% or I don't know what the
probably
50 out of 250 maybe.
It was like 13,
20%.
14% was a stat at one point.
They're at 60% with their quarterbacks. They're paying.
Cutlets, Jackson, Russ, and Jameis. But yeah, there are a lot of names that are there that I'm really pumped that the Chiefs have the draft picks they have tonight because, man, they can come away.
It does really feel like a
really
deep second and third round class. There were like tonight. And this is the night for the Chiefs. Think about, I mean, outside of Mahomes and McDuffie, their best players.
Make their hay.
Great Humphrey, second round. I mean, Bolton. You had Trey Smith, 6th round. Travis Kelce was 3rd round.
Yeah, right.
Hunt
Rice,
was Hunt 2nd or 3rd. Right?
3rd round, Kareem Hunt. Yep, they got a lot of guys.
Rice, yeah.
In the 2nd and 3rd round, so we'll see what happens tonight, and some local guys as well. So you guys will be at both Ursery and Jalen Knoll's draft parties tonight. That's cool. Both
Very
of them
cool.
Should be off the board.
KC football. I mean, more and more every year you have these guys, and like Ursery started playing football his sophomore year just because it was huge. Right?
Yeah.
And that's the cool thing. But back in the day, you had to have a Josh Freeman to break through or from Kansas City. Now you have guys like Ursery. Jalen Knoll's a 3-star guy. They're just kind of falling into the NFL, and that just shows the talent that's around here.
Hey, Arianti, I know that you've worked with horses in equestrian, but you're not going to make it as a jockey. Have you tried football? I get polo is fun. It's a fun sport for you. try football.
I know you want to fly fighter jets, okay? But you're 6'8", 330 pounds. They don't let you. They don't let you.
try tackle, maybe offensive line. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. We're hanging out at the Deck Supply. We'll return with one more segment. We got the cuts for you before the show is over on this Friday. More Zone next. All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB, hanging out at the Deck Supply, 105th and Metcalf. The location where we are. They've got the spring sale going on today and tomorrow with the Fiberon and the TimberTech. They are going to take care of the sales tax for you if you come down here today or tomorrow with your, whether it be new deck or renovating the deck or fixing up the deck or just an outdoor living space. It is the Deck Supply where we are at today. We have talked a lot of the NFL draft today. Since, we talked a lot of NFL draft leading up to it. I didn't want to spend 10 minutes we spent the last month or so talking about the draft. Chiefs took Josh Simmons. Salvi had 4 doubles
I was going to
yesterday.
say, the greatest doubleheader
awesome,
day in, baseball history.
Dude, they couldn't score more than 4 runs all season long, and they did it twice all season long. They did it twice yesterday alone.
That's baseball, baby.
That's the Rockies, I've learned, baby.
100%.
God, can they play
take care of the
more?
Astros. Let's take care of the Stros.
Did I miss something? Did they maybe move to the AL Central this year?
Yeah.
We had 10 more games against them?
Well, it is the most perfect thing ever is that the Rockies in Denver are now 4-20. So the team
it's like 11 or 12 game losing streak.
Yeah, but the team in Colorado is 4-20 right now, so it's perfect there for Colorado.
Weed.
That's what I'm talking about. Reefa. All right, let's end this thing, shall we? Let's cut it up before the show is over. Drake, go ahead and take it away.
Hey, Trent. Good to see you again.
Good to see you, my guy.
My guy.
Yes, Trent McDuffie and Matt Derrick, they're close. Good to see you, my guy.
You talk about
you
Trent's
give me
hammer.
$80 million, you can fly me anywhere to can my ass.
I agree with you, Sterling.
Thank you. Maybe they only have certain tiny packages for him. Pause.
You are a machine with those, by the way.
Volume scorer.
I don't mean to.
A finger exercise.
Sterling buckets.
You're going to be doing full speed swings, full speed runs. Why, obliques, hamstrings, quads. Jonathan India had the quad. Maybe that was from running around in the outfield a little bit more than he's used to in his body. I thought that was an interesting podcast that they had a couple of podcasts to go to.
Well, I might be wrong, but it feels like the Chiefs, knock on wood, have been pretty good in the soft tissue injuries for the most part. And I wonder if it's because they do have harder training camps. They have Andy Reid. That's what he's known for. It's not easy. It's not just walkthroughs.
You're going to be doing full speed swings, full speed runs. Why, obliques, hamstrings, quads. Jonathan India had the quad. Maybe that was from running around in the outfield a little bit more than he's used to in his.
If you were talking to young people, they're probably stoned. I doubt that.
The guy should be stoned and then go out at 10 o'clock at night and take a bottle with you.
I would like to announce that I have consummated a trade with Kyle Collier.
Wow.
I traded my brownie from Nick and Jake's for his carrot cake. We had pieces. We have all these great desserts that Nick and Jake's brought us here. So do you think you got the better end of the deal, brownie for carrot cake? There's no way.
Listen, carrot cake it's a bit of a question mark for me. I went with the brownie because they got the high floor. The ceiling might not be as high, but I wanted the strong foundation to build upon. And I've got.
That's brilliant.
Works. Small and dilapidated.
Deck Supply is not. Check them out.